So good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here with us today. To welcome the gathered and to introduce our guests, I request the Principal of RPD College, Dr. Shobha Naik, to just do the carry on the proceeding.
Hello, good morning to everyone and heartiest welcome to everyone. Sarvanna namaskar, sarvanचं hardik hardik swagat. I welcome you to this very relevant international webinar on behalf of SK's Rani Parvati Devi College, Belgavi. Belgaum is situated in a belt between North Karnataka and South Maharashtra. These two Indian states represent the rich language and literary cultures of India. Belgaum being a border area, people speak both the state languages, that is Kannada and Marathi. Rani Parvati Devi College is a reputed educational institution run by South Konkan Education Society, which promotes a dedicated social consciousness as its primary vision and goal. Recently, the society celebrated its platinum jubilee in the year 2019. For 75 years, the institution has provided excellent service in the field of education to Belgaum and the surrounding areas. I salute our most dedicated management who support its staff and students always. And I also salute all our retired, dedicated, and scholarly professors. I take pride in our remarkable alumni who have brought laurels to this institution in various walks of life. To describe the utmost richness, I would like to point out that the institution used to provide 78 subject combinations to the students until recently. Empowering individuals with knowledge is the vision statement of this institution carries. With these brief remarks about the college, on behalf of our esteemed management, dignified staff, and students, I take this opportunity to welcome you all to one day international webinar on the topic challenges and opportunities in higher education during and post COVID-19 pandemic. It is my proud privilege to welcome our today's esteemed scholar dignitaries on Zoom platform, as well as our respected delegate professors, teachers, students, research scholars, and general public who are present on the platform of YouTube. As we all know, COVID-19 has completely disturbed our lives. We had never thought that we would have to face such a situation. Most of the social sectors are at the edge of collapsing. Mainly, our economy is falling. The everyday contact has stopped. Man is a social animal. Absolutely true. But due to present pandemic restrictions on social behavior is inevitable. Death is apparent at every strata and in every country. In such a situation, the field of education has been greatly affected, and we should pay attention. Education directly affects matters related to social, economic, mental, intellectual, and rational ways of existence. Schools are closed, colleges are closed, universities are closed. When we say higher education, we imply only graduation and post-graduation, forgetting that it has its roots in the primary school levels. When higher education is stuck, it means the most important critical faculties will be affected, leading to a regression in civilization progress. There is no need to remember those worst parts here. We all aware of world history. With such a disturbed state of mind, today's topic got launched on this webinar's platform. So at any cost, we have to take care of education field on priority. If due to this horrifying pandemic, students and teachers are not able to come out of the homes, then what best can be done? How it can be done? How can a teacher can give the best to his or her student? These were the questions that led me and all of us to today's international webinar. With such thoughts and with a demand of national webinar, I contacted most renowned Honorable Vice-chancellor of Shivaji University, Dr. D.T. Shirke, and discussed the topic COVID-19 ने निर्माण केलेली शैक्षणिक क्षेत्रापुढील आव्हाने. He accepted at once and provided the title called Challenges and Opportunities in Higher Education during the post-COVID-19 pandemic. While further organizing proceedings towards the thought clicked that COVID-19 pandemic is of course an international issue. How then is the abroad educational field handling the situation? The search in this regard finally led with the help of Mr. Nihar Kalghadgi sir, the forceful resource helping us set up a digital campus, and Mr. Milind Joshi sir from US to this opportunity to perform today's international discourse on the challenges and opportunities in higher education. Our webinar includes two sessions. First session will shed light on the fulfillment of educational requirements in post-COVID-19 pandemic landscape. And the second session, Honorable VC Sir will provide a picture on challenges and opportunities in higher education during and after COVID-19 pandemic, with reference to our latest national educational policy. In the beginning itself, I express a bucket of thankfulness to him. I, Professor Shobha Naik, as a principal of Rani Parvati Devi Degree College of Arts, Commerce and BBA, express once again my sincere gratitude to Mr. Nihar and CEO Mr. Milind Joshi sir. I welcome them. I welcome most inspirational force Srimati Bimba Nadkarni, Chairperson of RPD Managing Committee, Srimati Lata Kittur, respected senior member of SKE Society, and Dr. Vijay Nagannavar of RCU, and all the other resource persons. We value our cooperation a lot. We value your cooperation a lot. With these introductory remarks, delightfully, I welcome our resource persons from United States for first session, Mr. Bill Radulovich and Ms. Kelly Hilton, who will be focusing on the fulfillment of educational challenges in post-COVID-19 pandemic landscape, and educate us how they have developed the digitalized educational platform. Once again, I welcome all of you and wish you will take away important insights from this thoughtful, relevant presentation. I appeal to the delegates to come forward with the relevant questions, which will bring the depth in real sense. I now request Mr. Pierre Carvalho, head of our IT section, for further proceedings. Thank you. Pierre, you please proceed.
Thank you, ma'am. Now to introduce the first speaker, Bill Radulovich, I request Dr. M.S. Kurani to do the introduction.
Okay, sir. Am I audible, sir? Hello?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, sir. Very good morning to you all. I extend a very warm and hearty welcome to this international webinar on the topic Challenges and Opportunities in Higher Education during and after COVID-19 pandemic. This webinar is jointly organized by Internal Quality Assurance Cell and Department of Marathi, Rani Parvati Devi College of Arts and Commerce, Tilakwadi, Belgavi, Karnataka State. I take this is an honor and privilege to introduce today's resource person, Mr. Bill Radulovich, President at Radiant Alternative Design, Executive Coach for COO BellCurve Lab, Advisor, School on the Way, Alamo, California, United States of America, for kind enough to accept our invitation as a resource person for this international webinar. Mr. Bill has been educator, business person, environmental advocate, social entrepreneur, author, and community activist for over 4 decades. He holds 3 postgraduate degrees, 2 in education and 1 in public administration. He has taught from preschool level to postgraduate level, including courses for University of Arizona, University of California, Berkeley and Chapman College, Ottawa University, and California State University. He has developed several businesses, including clinical learning centers, as well as nationally recognized renewable energy company. Bill spent 32 years in school administration, serving in the capacity of director, headmaster, principal, and program coordinator. He was named Administrator of the Year by Association of California School Administrators in the year 2007. Yes, his schools have received many awards and recognitions, including School of the Year in 2008 at International Earth Summit and National Blue Ribbon School by President George W. Bush in 2003. Mr. Bill co-authored a book, Sustainable Communities, a graduate level textbook on collaboration with Dr. Woodrow Clark, a Nobel Prize recipient in the year 2007. Mr. Bill has been a national level speaker in the areas of renewable energy, educational technology, and the teaching of pro-social values. He spent 10 years as a fellow with the Developmental Studies group in San Francisco. Mr. Radulovich spearheaded the development of the first solar school district and co-developed the concept of solar power purchase agreement, that is SPPA, in United States of America. On the international level, he helped charter Go Green Initiatives, which is the largest environmental education organization in the world. Mr. Bill advises school administrators and education policy makers in the areas of curriculum development, strategic planning, visioning, and educational reform. He was an early adopter of the neurosciences into everyday curriculum applications. He worked with many psychologists and academicians in the development of brain-based learning. Mr. Bill consulted with various public agencies in the areas of renewable energy resources, including the Department of Energy at 2 national laboratories. He was a chief consultant in the implementing the plan which led to the development of the first utility scale solar farm by the United States government. Mr. Bill is, I conclude my introduction speech. In total, Mr. Bill is a legendary academician, administrator, author, environmental advocate, great scholar, and above all, he is a great teacher. Today, we are very lucky to have such a great personality with us to deliver a special talk on this particular theme. With brief introduction, once again, I welcome Mr. Bill Radulovich for this session. I present before you Mr. Bill Radulovich. Thank you, one and all.
And thank you, sir, and thank you, madam, and thank you to SKE Society. I only hope I can live up to that introduction. In advance, I apologize for my American English accent. I hope I come through clear enough and on the audible side for all of you. I'm going to pull up some slides that I would like to share with you.
Yes, I think you need to allow the sharing.
Allow for sharing, please.
Yeah, please.
Is it not allowed, sir?
No, it's disabled, the sharing screen.
Yeah. Can you try now, sir?
I shall. There we have it. Thank you. Technology. Well, ladies and gentlemen throughout India, namaste. It's wonderful to be here with you. It's a very, very large topic that we're going to try to broach and cover tonight, myself in my half hour and Kelly in her half hour. The scope is far beyond our capacity to speak with any absolute authority. What we hope to do is to be able to at least ignite some ideas and some thoughts, to lay down some tracks for some ideas for all of you to proceed forward in this new world that we have found ourselves having to suddenly embrace. I'm going to, during the course of this discussion, deal with this in two parts. The first part is the challenges that we face as educators in a COVID and post-COVID world in dealing with higher education. And then the second part, of course, we'll look at some of the opportunities. There will be a little overlap, but in the challenges, they're going to be a little higher level, and they're going to have to do with what are some of the more important operational aspects of being in education during a situation like this. So I'm going to be talking about, first of all, the contextualization. What is the context in which we're operating? Hopefully we can all sort of agree upon or have some common presuppositions and assumptions about where the world is right now and where it's headed. And then upon that we can build. I'm going to be talking about, and some of the concepts have to do with disruption, which Madam has already referred to, and we'll talk a bit about that. A concept called, under that whole panoply of disruptions, of unearned margins. We'll talk about one of the most important phenomena that has occurred in conjunction with COVID-19, which is the phenomena of acceleration and the importance of understanding that concept. Then I'm going to talk about horizontal integration and aggregation. It's going to be a challenge for all educational institutions to broaden their wings, to expand their capacity. And how do we do that? And that is going to be through horizontal integration and aggregation. And then the thing that all schools are dealing with, and that is digital scaling. How do we move into digital platforms? And how do we scale? And how do we scale appropriately and effectively? So moving through each of these one by one, first of all, very briefly, the context in which I'm speaking to you is a rather unfortunate, one of the most unfortunate contexts that I could come to you in. We understand the misery and the difficulties that the people of the nation of India have been dealing with in the last couple of weeks since this horrible return of COVID. Worldwide, this has been, the human cost and human sacrifice has been massive. We've seen hospitalizations now approaching 200 million throughout the world. The death toll is rapidly moving towards 4 million. And just day before yesterday, the World Bank indicated that they're expecting something in the neighborhood of a $10 trillion loss in productivity over an 18-month period. In short, COVID has changed the arc of history. We can never go back. The world as we face it is a new world. The past is the past, and there are very few lessons from which that can be built. Why? Because of disruption. As Madam mentioned earlier, this has been incredibly disruptive. There's hardly an individual alive in the world today who has not been affected by COVID-19 in some way, shape, or form. But disruption isn't always a terrible thing. The steam engine came about at the beginning of the 19th century. And the impact of this small, what seemed to be a small change, a small disruption, is perhaps one of the most important of all history. The steam engine, first of all, supplanted the slave trade and the institution of slavery in the Western world by providing 200 times the labor power out of machines that were more reliable, cheaper, and more efficient. And it pushed slavery out of England. 1802, the British abandoned slavery and the slave trade. By the end or the middle of that century, one of the greatest game changers in the history of Homo sapien took place. One of the most important inflection points, and that was the Industrial Revolution, all brought about by a small disruption called the steam engine. A friend of mine who teaches at Stanford University, his name is Dr. Paul Romer. He's now just recently retired. He's a Nobel Prize winning economist, but he gave me strength in 2008 when my school we were going through incredible problems in California because of the economic demise of the mortgage collapse and the financial collapse of 2008. I had to lay off 1/3 of my staff, but I took heart in what Paul said. Paul said this, he said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And I thank him for that bit of wisdom. I want to talk about, under the larger panoply of disruption, is a very important concept. And it's very important for secondary education. And I think if nothing else, you take nothing else from this, I'd like you to understand what unearned margins are. Unearned margins, it's a term used by economists and stock analysts and others for institutions whose costs are increasing and continue to increase without a concomitant and an equivalent increase in their actual value and in their innovation. There's a thing called the disruptability index. It's been developed by stock analysts and it's been developed by economists as well. It's used in the United States. There are 5 factors used in it, but by far the key factor in determining how disruptible an institution is or a sector is the unearned margins. Well, in America, maybe not in India, but in America and worldwide, the unearned margins on higher education are larger than any other sector. In the last 30 years, education costs, tuition for higher education have gone up 1,400% in the United States. Since I went to college in, well, a long time ago anyhow, in the 70s, it's gone up over 2,000%. Higher education has the largest unearned margin of any sector in economics. In short, higher education is ripe for disruption. It's not a matter of will it happen and when will it happen. It is underway and it's happening now. I'll give some examples. The other concept that's very important to understand about COVID is that COVID has been the great accelerator. We've seen acceleration in both directions, upward and downward. It's happened in social, political, and economic spheres. But I'm going to talk mostly about the economic spheres. We know what's happened politically. The entire administration, executive administration of the US government was moved out of power because of their handling of COVID. We know what's happened on the social sphere because nothing is happening. People have been isolated and separated and quarantined. But in economics, amazing, incredible stuff have happened. And I think you're going to be very surprised to hear this. There have been some huge winners. COVID has actually blessed many corporations in America. Which ones? Big tech. When I say big tech, I look at like the big 4, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook. Let me give you Apple as just one example. Apple was a company that was started 47 years ago. It took them 47 years to make their first $1 trillion. COVID hit, and they made their second $1 trillion in 20 weeks. 20 weeks. Similarly, with Amazon, Google, and Facebook, each of those companies in that same period of time averaged 87% increase in their market value. At the same time that they were being accelerated fast and forward at breakneck speed, there were huge losers. The losers were in many cases some iconic brick and mortar retail businesses like in the US, JCPenney and Neiman Marcus, but the hospitality industry, travel and entertainment industries were all devastated, and they have throughout the world. Any business that requires synchronous and proximal activities, like higher education, have been greatly affected. And why is it, though, that some of these businesses, that some of these enterprises have been so successful while others haven't? Well, partially because they've entered the digital age. But there's another answer to that as well. And that is because those who are successful across the board are those who have had high brand value, have demonstrated innovation, or at least a high perception of innovation, and have a compelling narrative. Now, of course, having some cash reserves like Apple with 200 billion in cash, that doesn't hurt a bit. Or Harvard University with $83 billion in cash assets, that doesn't hurt either. But what has happened with those who have been accelerated is what I call the Tesla effect. And I want to give you a little example of what's happened in industry because it's business. Education is itself a business as well. And to think that one is divorced from the other is to be very deceptive to ourselves. The Tesla effect has to do with a story, and it has to do with the story of Tesla. Tesla has been around effectively for 5 years. Do you know what the largest automobile company is in the entire world? It's Tesla. They've been around 5 years. The Tesla in those 5 years has gained greater market capital, market value than a combination of Toyota, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Daimler, Chrysler, and Honda, all combined. Those 5 companies, all combined, have been in the automotive business for over 200 years. And yet they have to come together to have a market capitalization, market value that's equivalent to Tesla. So is Tesla outselling them? Hardly. In 2020, Tesla sold just a little over 400,000 automobiles. The other 5 companies together sold 26 million automobiles. And yet their market value just barely reaches that of Tesla. Higher education is victim to the same forces in the marketplace. And higher education is currently on a precipice that's been created by COVID's disruptiveness. And it's going to be jettisoned to either new heights or into oblivion, depending upon how we embrace the future. And the ways that we have to embrace it is to grow. Winners in this new economy, in education in particular, are going to need to decentralize, be more distributive, and partner with other institutions in order to break out of their silos. Harvard has done an amazing job of this. Harvard lost $10 million this last year. 20% of the incoming freshman class have declined enrollment and have asked for a postponement of enrollment, and they've been granted, costing them about a $10 million loss. But Harvard, first of all, they have a large endowment, and that will help get them through. But they quickly responded by horizontally integrating. They reached out to partners across education and formed a large MOOC, and you probably are, many of you, familiar with it, called Harvard X. Harvard X offers amazing courses that are free if you don't take the certificate out of the course, or you can pay something in the neighborhood of 139 American dollars, which is, I believe, about 10,000 INR, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 INR, to actually get the certificate for that. Now, Kelly, Mrs. Hilton, is going to be talking about a strategy that she's developed called HyperDocs, an amazingly promising answer to this particular challenge of horizontal integration and aggregation. And she'll be talking more, so I don't want to move in on her speech and speak any more about that, but I'll talk about the final challenge here, and that is digital scaling. Digital scaling is a very, very important thing. It's essentially being able to take whatever your platform is, digital platform now, and to build on it. Education has been constituted on a post-industrial revolution concept of lockstep, incremental assembly of a single product, the student. We put them in standard 1, standard 2, standard 3, just as we do in America, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. We give them 6 different classes a day, 5 different classes a day. And we operate very much in the manufacturing model, thinking that students are to be manufactured. That's wrong thinking. It is constrained, the way that we deliver education, by time, because it's synchronous and concurrent learning, and by space, because we control it within the classrooms. We have to break out of that paradigm. The key to breaking these constraints is to use the digital platform to reach more students, more often, more conveniently, and oh, by the way, more profitably by doing that. A quick example of that is a fellow who wrote a book on COVID. His name is Scott Galloway. He's a professor at New York University Stearns College of Business. He's the highest paid and probably the most popular professor in the world. He teaches a class on brand strategy. And that class cost $7,000 US for a single 3-unit class, semester class. That's $500,000 INR for a single class. That's more than my wife and I paid for bachelor's degrees, 4-year bachelor's degrees back in 1970. That's unearned margins for you. Anyhow, his course was limited to 60 students until COVID happened. They were making about $420,000 on his course per semester. COVID happened and he built it to 380, and now it's over 1,000. And that class will be bringing in $7 million of revenue to NYU. So those are some of the, just to go over some of the challenges. And I think there are plenty more, but I wanted to point out those that may not be as obvious or that need to be reinforced even further. Let's see what we do here. Okay, I'd like now to talk a little bit about the opportunities, because this is what we're most excited with. And most of these opportunities, which are listed here, and I'll go over them real briefly, these are some endeavors actually involved. These are endeavors that we're actually involved with SKE Society in dealing with. And I'll tell you more about that and what our partnership is starting to look like. But the opportunities are in developing a neuroscience-based, student-driven pedagogy that is career-centric, based on a career-centric curriculum design. In other words, teach the students' needs based on understanding how their brains work in order for them to be effective in the workplace. The underlying concepts come from behavioral economics. They come from a very new and exciting field that I'm involved in, behavioral genetics, around which we have developed an instrument called the ACE Psychometric Profiler. And I'll talk a bit about that, but that's an instrument that is the key to all of this. Using ACE and using these concepts, we're going to be working with SKES to develop what we call psychographic profiling. I'll talk about that, gap analysis, curriculum auditing, and we hope to be able to create a one-of-a-kind and truly revolutionary approach to education that is based on science and based on the best scientific principles and concepts that are available to us today. The first to take a look at here, that does not want to work, is if we look at neuroscience and neuroscience-based student-driven pedagogy, traditional education it works where children were molded to meet the needs of adults. That was a great idea for 10,000 years. And it was a great idea for agrarian cultures and agrarian societies, but it's not a great idea in the information era. Career-centric curriculum design is a concept in which we address the needs of adults. We help children through teaching them the career that matches them best, that is best for them, and I'll explain that as we continue, okay? And we provide the best match between the student and the career curriculum that they need in order for them to become autonomous, self-regulating, self-sustaining, and self-actualized. Very, very important. We've developed technologies that we believe optimize all of the above. These concepts are based on behavioral economics. Many of you out there have read the work, for example, of the first person to really coin the term and to further the notion, Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman is a psychologist, and he's the first and only psychologist who's ever won the Nobel Prize for economics. His concept around this, which is, his books are fascinating. I encourage you to read them, particularly Think Fast, Think Slow. It have to do with why we assign value to different things and why we assign higher value to some things than other things and what that's all about. I'll give you a hint about the conclusions. The answer is that it's not because we're rational, because human beings aren't. And it's not because we're selfish, as per the traditional economic theory. It's for other reasons. And it's a book, and it's worth reading and noting because of that. Our ACE psychometric profiler is based on many of those concepts. The second one here that follows is behavioral genetics. Behavioral genetics is quite simply the relationship between genetic and epigenetic. That's the interplay between genes and environment, genetic and epigenetic factors in determining behavior. We used to think that behavior, the way we behave was a function of our environment. What we found since the twin studies, and I encourage you to look at the twin studies, there just isn't enough time to talk about it, but the twin studies have shown that we as individuals are more of a product of our genes and our inheritance than we ever deemed possible before. That's what ACE is about. The ACE profiler itself, to go into a little more detail about it, is a psychometric assessment. It's a quick and easy psychometric assessment. Takes somewhere between 6 and 12 minutes, around 10 minutes at most to do. And it's based on what Daniel Kahneman, the behavioral economics professor, would call thinking fast, which is our instinctive behaviors, our automatic behaviors, which really represent 90% of all of our behavioral patterns. When you take this assessment, what we get as a result is it decodes your behavioral genome. I'll talk more about that. And it sequences what we call your behavioral code, a code that's built out of 6 behavioral or personality factors. And then it takes that information and it determines what the best career pathway is for the individual. In building it, the traits themselves, the 6 traits that are sequenced, come from the Holland codes, which across most psychology and most schools of psychology are the most widely accepted and acknowledged personality traits. They are here, and I won't go into detail, but basically all 6 of these traits inhabit all of our personalities, all of our genes. So we are all of those people: investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, conventional, and realistic. We all are, but the extent to which some of them are more dominant than others determine our unique genetic code. And that's what our test gives. It yields a sequence. Here's an array of an individual here, and it shows the percentage and the degree of each of those personality traits that manifest themselves within this person's behavioral genome. As you can see in this case, this person is strongest 3 traits are social, which is a helper, investigative, which is a thinker, and artistic, which is a creative. We do this and we get insights as to what it is that causes this individual's M drive, their motivational drive, the nucleus accumbens, 2 little parts of the brain, part of the dopaminergic system, to light up. What motivates them? Then we take that information along with a little machine learning, there we go. That information along with a little bit of machine learning, some artificial intelligence, and we mash that with ONET, which is the US government's job database, the US Department of Labor's job database. It's the largest job database in the world with over 23,000 different jobs. And we use that to determine some outcomes. And the outputs are this. We get a behavioral code. That's a sequence of the dominant behaviors. That dictates the 3 most likely industry sectors that your genome, your behavioral genome matches with. So it suggests the 3. There are 16, by the way, industry sectors that are generally accepted worldwide, and certainly by the UN and the World Bank. Then it drills down even closer into what we call career clusters, which drill down within those 3 sectors to to refine it into larger, more specific areas. And ultimately then will spit out or provide for you specific occupational fits, descriptions of specific jobs that you are most likely to be successful at, to enjoy, and to thrive at, and to find, become self-actualized in doing. On top of that, we use the data science to create and generate a personalized career dashboard in which you can, individual can investigate these jobs, look at what's involved with these jobs, where are they located, what do they pay, what's the education requirements in doing it, what are the personality traits that best comport with them. So this is what ACE happens to provide for the individual. On an institutional level, we provide, and this is what we're working with SKES on, and we're very excited about, is a psychographic profile, okay? The psychographic profile, which we're looking at right here, this one is a representative, okay, example. It's not an actual group because we're yet to run a very, very large population. We hope with SKES to be running a large population so that we can get a representative sample of their student population that we can use for planning curriculum and for designing their education from the bottom up as well as from the top down. If you look at this, arrayed across the bottom are the 16 different industry sectors that are pretty universally accepted. If you look at this one, you'll see that over on this column here, this particular sample here shows that the largest number of students are inclined towards information technology. And then the second largest towards business management and administration. And then the third on the right here, it's science, technology, and engineering. Once an institution, a group of educators know that, they can say, this is a profile of our entire student body. We can look at this and determine what does our curriculum need to look like. And from that, what they can then do is what we call a gap analysis or curriculum audit. And here you identify the gaps between your student needs and your curricular capacity. So for example, in the area of information technology, you look at what capacity do we have to meet that need? And you look at what the gaps are. And if they're filled, then you go on to the next. If they aren't, then that's an area in which you would start to fill by horizontally integrating through partnerships, using Kelly's hyperlinks and having teachers to develop, or by partnering with MOOCs and other online courseware or other universities, university partners to fill the gap. That's all part of that horizontal integration that I was talking about in the first place. So we're going to be partnering with SKES to accomplish these ambitious outcomes in the months ahead. These are the areas in which I've been discussing the areas in which we're going to be moving forward, and we hope that you've begun to understand. This is the blueprint that we'll be moving forward. And in summary, this blueprint is our attempt to respond to what has become of the world because of COVID. COVID has created some amazing opportunities that just were not highlighted for us in the past. It has cast a very bright light on this, and I hope that I've been able to point some of that illumination on it myself. It's jolted us from our previous complacency. We've faced down the greatest crisis, I hope, of all of our lifetimes. And I say to you, let's not waste it. And I thank you, and I thank you for the opportunity to present to you. It's been an honor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We are going to have a small change in schedule. Instead of having the question and answer round immediately after Bill's presentation, we'll have the introduction to Kelly Hilton by Dr. S.I. Kittali, ma'am. And after that, at the end of the second session, we will have a question and answer round for both the sessions. So I request Dr. S.I. Kittali to introduce Kelly Hilton.
She's not, they're not bringing Kelly up.
Hello. Am I audible, sir?
They've got her muted. I need to stop sharing. I did stop sharing.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. It is a great honor for us to organize this international webinar. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce guest and resource person of today's webinar, Ms. Kelly Hilton. Kelly Hilton is the Coordinator of Instructional Technology in the San Francisco Bay Area. It is America's leading school district, which includes 32 school sites with over 3,000 teachers and technicians. Instructional technology deals with practice of design, development, and management of resources and processes for educational learning. She is the co-author of HyperDoc Handbook and also the co-founder of HyperDocs Digital Lesson Design. HyperDocs is an organized digital space with lesson plans that are designed by experts in the field of teaching and are given to students. She has also been an author of various books and is also a well-known keynote speaker. With over 20 years of experience in education, Madam Kelly has masters in educational leadership for social justice. She has also served as a teacher and instructional coach and also as a site administrator. In these years of service, Madam Kelly has always been fascinated about creating inclusive and equitable experiences of learning. I once again welcome you, ma'am, to this webinar. I'm sure we will all be enlightened by your wisdom. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This community, I really, really appreciate you for including me into your educational community and giving me a little time to connect with you this morning and share with you about one of my passions to build off what Bill shared with us earlier, which is what happens in the classroom with students, what happens between teachers and students and designing lessons. So I'm going to invite you to please share your questions in the chat while we communicate today. I also am going to invite you to follow along with my presentation. I'm going to share some slides, but I've also dropped the slides in the chat so that you can go ahead and follow along, because I have a lot of resources and links that I'd like you to be able to access beyond today's presentation. Now, the link is in the slide presentation, but if you're watching this at a later time, you can follow along with this short link at bit.ly/southconkin, and you'll be able to access this resource at any time. It's an open resource for you. So I want to start by introducing myself a little bit as just a lesson planner and designer and teacher. And as I create learning experiences for students, I'm always thinking about how to bring the purposeful technology integration into that lesson design. As Mr. Radulovich mentioned, and as we're discussing today, COVID-19 created a disruption in education. But I would argue, just like Mr. Radulovich did, that disruption created an opportunity for many learning gains. I'd like you to think about yourself for a moment. those of us who are here in this call or watching this recording later. And where were you back in March of 2019 as a teacher, as a technology integration specialist, and as a learner? And where are you now? Because I'm guessing there's been a lot of learning happening across the world and globally as educators came together to find solutions at the college level, at the high school, secondary level, and at the primary and elementary level to teach students remotely from a computer, which we never thought we would ever have to do. And we also used what we know about teaching in the classroom at the same time. So as Mr. Radulovich mentioned, it's time to now build off that as an opportunity. So next steps. Well, we have an open canvas of creating new classrooms. Classrooms that can be hybrid or a mix. Classrooms with students online and students in the room at the same time. And with technology, what can we take from this time and innovate? How can we innovate our classrooms? So this new normal that we've described includes things such as blended learning. And blended learning is defined as purposeful technology integration, sometimes utilizing some of our traditional practices and sometimes utilizing technology. And we have this new shared understanding globally about teaching and learning. You know, now we talk about synchronous instruction, which this webinar would be described as synchronous instruction. We also understand the value and the purpose of asynchronous instruction, which this webinar can serve in that way since it's being recorded and can be shared at another time. And before COVID, we weren't always implementing that. There's a newfound appreciation for technology, Chromebooks that have been utilized across the world for students to create and collaborate and connect, utilizing the tools. Google Classroom, which has become the new doors into a classroom for a teacher to communicate with a class, to pass out assignments, and to collect assignments, and to build in communication and critical thinking. Some educators are using tools like Seesaw in a very similar fashion. Or I know that across the globe, people are utilizing Zoom or Google Meets to have these kinds of conversations. And look at us together now, coming from the United States and California all the way to you in India. It's an incredibly exciting time to be an educator. So I mentioned that because what Mr. Radulovich was talking about was what is going to motivate our students. And he's created this incredible platform that is the most innovative data that we can get on our students. As educators, we start with data. We want to know who our students are and what motivates them. So just sort of like this little mouse going through the maze here, how do we keep that drive going in our students? How do we get them to learn? And perhaps we can parallel that with all the learning that we've done in the past year. What drove you to try new things? And how can we transfer that into our classrooms to really inspire students to drive their instruction? And what does it mean as an educator to create this space and then get out of the way and allow students to grow and create and collaborate and blossom? This is the new way of lesson design. So let's talk about with this curiosity. This is that curiosity that drives the instruction. I'd like to invite you to just enjoy with me a quick short video, okay? Because we were all thrust into new learning environments, and new learning requires it can be challenging, but it can also be really rewarding. So let's enjoy watching this woman learn something new. And as you're watching the video, let's just reflect on that universal communication of being a lifelong learner in school and beyond. And what is the learner doing during the video? While you're watching the video, ask yourself, what steps is that learner taking?
I'm trying the microphone, and I hope this comes out right, because, I should say a period, right? I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Breathe deep. Okay. What does that say? Wait a minute. I'll read it. Okay. What is it? Say, wait a minute. I read it. Okay. Who read it? Okay. Is she answering me? Is she talking back to me?
No, that's you.
Is that me? What am I doing?
Okay. So what can we learn from Patsy? She's learning how to use the microphone. She took some risks. She wondered if she was on the right path. She was exploring. She had a little mistakes in there. This is all the path towards learning. She had someone there with her collaborating. So all of that is the kind of experiences we're trying to design for our students. So when it comes to what motivates our students, we have this really impactful tool that Mr. Radulovich is sharing with us to help us understand what engages them. But also the other tool is ourselves, our lesson design, and how we build that curiosity into our lesson design. Because once we have that and we have that drive, then there's going to be more questions to ask and more background knowledge to build. So here's what it looks like in a classroom. I'm going to invite you to imagine for a moment that we are in a class together. And I'm going to be the teacher and you'll be the students following along with me, okay? And as a teacher, I want you to think about what does it take to be engaged? So in the past week, before we launch into the lesson, how often did you get so absorbed into learning that you completely lost track of what time it was because you were so engaged with something? How often in the last week did you talk to someone who gave you a new idea that might have changed your mind? How about taking initiative to learn more about your own interests, if that happened for you? And when you didn't know an answer, did you go look it up until you could figure it out? Or how about when you explored a completely new idea or topic just for the fun of it? With technology, our students have this at their fingertips and they can do this at any time. So did you get all 5 of those, or 2 of them, or 3 of them? How are we doing as engaged learners? And in my lesson, I'd like you to indulge me in the beginning part of a lesson. Perhaps I'm teaching you about it's World Tourism Day, and we want to celebrate World Tourism Day as a community. And with that, there are opportunities for us to explore. And what I've linked here is 3 places from Google Arts and Culture. And I'm going to ask you, and you can share in the chat, or you can just pick one yourself. But if you were going to take a trip right now, where would you go? Would you want to take a cultural trip, perhaps an adventure trip, or a spiritual journey? You know, we've all been stuck home for the past several months. So the world is your oyster right now on this exploration adventure. And I hope you have the slides that you can just click on any one of these and choose the one that you would like to take an adventure with. And for today's purposes, I'm going to click on an adventure trip. If I were to take an adventure trip, I'm exploring now here, and I'm seeing there's all these different adventures that I can take as a student. I can go on virtual tours. I can see the hidden worlds of the national parks. There are so many places to go. In fact, the first thing that happens for me is I'm not sure where to start until I see something that catches my eye. And this is that curiosity. And this one right here looks really interesting to me. It shows 10 incredible libraries from around the world. And I can travel there with this technology, and so can our students. I can keep going until I'm going into the actual library. Now, if you're following along, I hope that you're starting to see different tabs open up on your computer. Now, this library really caught my eye. The coloring is different. It's completely, there's multi-layers to it. And it's called This Brilliant White 5-Story Reading Room of the Stuttgart City Library is shaped like an upside-down pyramid. I have so many questions that I'm getting excited about exploring this further. But my first thought is, where is this library located? So as a learner, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to take the next step, which perhaps happens when you're building your own curiosity. And I might open another tab and go to Google Earth or to Google Maps to find out exactly where that library is located. So I'm going to go to Google Earth. Here it is. Google Earth, again, a free space for our students to just explore. And instead of doing a Voyager right now, I'm going to go straight to that globe which connects us. This is very different than the kind of teaching and learning I had growing up. And I can search directly for that library and watch as it just flies me away into Germany. And now here I am directly in this library. I mean, I have watched second graders up to adults get lost in this curiosity of playing with these tools. And at the same time, I am really using building my background knowledge and thinking about new questions that I have and what I want to learn more. In fact, you can even go deeper by dropping the peg man in this city here, and you can get so close as to being actually inside the building. It's pretty amazing. So are you with me? Are you trying out some of this exploration? Because this is what we want our classrooms to look like. Okay, this is what we want our students to look like. After doing some exploration on Google Earth, I might now have more questions. I might just want to go to Google and find some research on the library. I might just want to go to YouTube and watch some videos on it. I might go to the encyclopedia or dictionary. And then as a teacher, after giving my classroom time to explore with a purpose, remember my purpose was, where do you want to travel? Then we will come together and collaborate on something called a Padlet to share our thinking digitally, and where everyone's voices are equitably heard and shared collectively. So as someone who's passionate about inclusive and equitable education, these tools create that space. So this is just one example of maybe what an exploration activity could look like in your lesson design. So now let me ask you something. If we go back to those 5 questions, could you see that happening for you if that were a lesson that was delivered in a classroom that you delivered or with your students at university? Because our students, especially at university, have the agency. They've got the drive, the curiosity to be there. So we can create that condition for them. So we can reflect now, where are we at now on those 2 things? So what's different about what I'm sharing? Traditional forms of lesson design and delivery have a cycle of learning that starts with, let me explain to you, let me lecture to you all the knowledge that I have as the teacher. And then I'm going to ask you to show me some work and apply some thinking through practice or homework. And then I will assess you on what parts I felt were important on that topic. This is the traditional method of delivering instruction. But in this model, do you see a place for some student-driven motivation? Do you see a cycle where students might be inspired to create something, or are they being compliant to follow directions? Can students complete activities for the goal of learning or for a grade with this model? So what do we want students to do? We want them to have agency, to find the answers to questions, to create, to collaborate, to deepen their critical thinking. And that is why we design HyperDocs. And HyperDocs start by shifting your cycle of learning. By the first thing asking students to do, giving them the content and allowing them to explore, to build on their background knowledge, to explore their schema, to ask more questions and go try to find the answers to it themselves on those tabs along the computer. And while they explore, while you're facilitating this in a classroom and you've allowed them to explore, the teacher now is freed up from the front of the classroom or in a Zoom room, can walk around in breakouts or walk around in a classroom and connect with your students to find out what they already know about a topic and to give them time to go deeper before you're teaching them anything. And the thing is that exploration takes time. So the explore comes first. So if you spend a day or so exploring or within a lesson, a short amount of time, then you move into the explain. And the thing that makes HyperDocs transformational is the apply. And in an apply, we are asking students to create something, to collaborate, to communicate globally, to show what they know in different ways, to show what they learned, to show a deeper level of understanding of content. So this cycle of learning flip-flopped allows us to not only, like we're reimagining our environments for schools, but it's time to disrupt and reimagine our lesson design as well. When you think about a HyperDoc, it's transformative delivery. You don't just design it and have students just do it themselves. You are still coaching, mentoring, giving feedback, and nudging, because that's what learners need. Because we know that the educator is at the heart of that student growth. And it's student driven. So a HyperDoc by design is a digital lesson plan designed by by teachers, given to students to provide access to students for all the content in a lesson. Let me show you a couple of examples and what I mean by that. If you have the slides, you can click on any one of these images. These are 3 digital lesson examples for you. And I'm going to take you to this first one called Consuming plus Creating, Political Murals. And this HyperDoc, it was designed, you'll see them in many different ways because the educator is the creator of this, and the educator knows all the information. A skilled, crafted educator knows who their students are, what kind of learning styles they are, what your curriculum is, and what resources you want to create in order to design that lesson. And in this lesson, you'll notice students start with an engagement activity where they watch this video and they just click on the image to watch it. But all the parts of the lesson are tucked in. In fact, in this particular example, the educator linked the lesson before as well, where they had a text set that they explored. Then she did an engagement, and this can be delivered from the HyperDoc whole group where you watch it traditionally together, or students can watch it on their own. And then they move into their exploration. So for this lesson, they're going to now travel directly to study murals in Philadelphia that have political messages and meanings, and start thinking about what they might want to say. That's their exploration. Then the teacher invites them to learn something and to make a commitment to what they have been learning. So they do a forced copy on there, and they can go deeper into this analysis. And the teachers linked up another doc for the students to jot their thinking down and for her to check for understanding. So all the steps are guided through the lesson. And here's that transformational piece, the application. Notice in the applications, students are invited to create their own mural that illustrates a topic that you're passionate about. And then there's conditions for creating that. What political message are you trying to illustrate? What elements of arts and principles of design did you see? All of the teaching that's been happening. And then there's 3 tools offered. Now, I like to give students a choice of tools because I've designed the assignment or the purpose for creating, and then I'll give some recommendations for tools, but they have other tools that they are well versed in. So we want them to utilize technology for creating. Now, all of these tools are incredible, but if you haven't checked out Adobe Spark yet, that's one of them linked on here. And Adobe has a platform that's free for students to design graphic posts or videos or sliding web pages. So allowing students to design in this way is really innovating that digital lesson design and disrupting it. So this lesson, from start to finish, this political murals could be put into that Google Classroom for your students. And perhaps if you're thinking about your remote instruction, maybe you created experiences like this, but the resources were posted at several different times in the classroom. So I ask you to consider, what is the impact of having it all in one place for your students, of having it in that space so that they can be guided through. If a student wants to move ahead, they can. If a student misses class, they can hop on and see what they missed. You can modify it within the moment. It's flexible lesson. It's all there. Another example I want to quickly share with you is called Humans of New York. And it's another lesson asking students to connect and capture stories, which is an incredible skill that students in life, in order to have a student voice, could utilize. And you'll notice a similar pedagogy, but the packaging is different. Now I'm looking at a Google slide presentation when before it was a Google document. So the packaging can change. The creativity of the teacher comes out, but this starts with, again, an exploration, exploring the resources as what we in America call mentor text, examples of understanding to get curious about. And then the explain is teaching about the book, teaching about the impact of telling these stories. And there's a very special news story that we share in this lesson. And we read the article, we watch the video, and then we even put in the parts of the lesson that are off tech, because it's purposeful and intentional to think about how to create discussion and collaboration and conversation. Excuse me. And then we get to the apply. And so for this one, students are invited to tell the stories of their community. Our community that we first made this lesson for was for Pleasanton. But any designer can go to File and make a copy. And then that copy of this lesson is in your drive. And you can customize it for your community. And after that application, they go to a share feature where they can see each other's work. And they can, after they've designed, and then they can reflect. So here's that tool, the Padlet, where everyone posts their work in one digital space so that all the students now can see each other's work. So what happens when we do that for each other? When I first opened this up, perhaps I created mine and turned it in, and then I start exploring other people's work, and I think to myself, wow, I love that design. I'm going to learn a little more. The learning grows and expands. And as you can see on this Padlet, they're commenting on each other's work. They're having these digital discussions to grow their thinking. Now, this can be applied to any lesson that you design, but think about the impact of what Bill was really talking about, of that collaboration at your school site. If you're creating together and then you're sharing, now you have expanded the learning at your school site. So one of the most impactful things is that File, make a copy. And what you see pictured here is one HyperDoc that's been remixed for several different purposes. People make a copy, they change the content out, and they make it work for their students. So that's that digital lesson design that's customized for the students in your class. And knowing what kind of aptitude they have and knowing what they need to learn and combining that together is really where the magic can happen for students. So this horizontal integration that we can talk about of collaboration from schools in India to schools in America, where we can share our digital lessons in this way, is amazing. And what you see here is when you start to design in this way, in your Google folder, this is a picture of a teacher's drive where all the lessons are ready to go and packaged to be shared with students or with their colleagues. So talk about, digitally scaling lesson design, really doing that so that all teachers can see each other. And in the HyperDoc world, we call this teachers give teachers. We recommend that once you design, you can share it with others, because in the end, that teacher is going to customize it for the students in their class, and it's for the greater good of education. So with that, when you combine all that we have learned about quality instruction, technology integration, and we can begin reimagining our schools, when we look at the data that the BellCurve Labs is going to provide for you on your students, and you're going to know that information, what will we do with that purposeful data? Well, we can take that to drive our own instruction, to customize those student lessons. And this is because one thing remains the same and constant, and that is that there is never the technology will never replace a good teacher. And the teacher will be the one supporting the students with the heart, with the art, with the craft, with the skill. And this other technology can enhance our knowledge of our students and what we need to do to support them. So I invite you to please feel free to check out those links and resources. And I'm going to close with an appreciation for listening to my ideas. And please share any questions that you have in the chat regarding digital lesson design and HyperDocs.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think everybody has been posting their appreciation on the different chats. and they're really happy. But not many questions come through, but whichever questions there are, we'll ask them right now. And feel free to, Bill or Kelly, if you want to just add in to whichever question you all think is relevant. So we have from Dr. Potar, in the beginning, in the first session, he had asked, what are the challenges related to horizontal integration of academic concepts in a post-COVID scenario? So if he basically wants to know how we can integrate academic concepts at different levels of, different courses, different curriculum, stuff like that.
Are you asking me that question, or did you want to repeat the question?
I just asked in general. I don't know. Yeah, I think Bill wants to say something. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I was muted. And,
yeah, my mistake. Very
probably was a wise thing to have me muted, but the opportunities in horizontal integration are manifold. They're unfurling on almost a weekly and a daily basis. What's happening is that virtually education is atomizing. That means that it's moving from this highly centralized unit into all of these small and disparate parts. As I mentioned, for example, HyperDocs, they saw early on the opportunity to collaborate, to bring in under their brand, the Harvard brand, various educational resources that are cost-free to those who just want the course itself, and very inexpensive for those who want the credit for the course itself. Virtually every US university, and particularly the ones that I am focused on most, are those that have high brand value and that have high quality professors and high quality infrastructure behind them. They are all hungry for satellites. They all realize that their success financially is going to be in atomizing their instruction, in decentralizing their instruction, in creating more satellites and nodes. As Kelly uses HyperDocs as a way of creating neural networks of educators in order to create a larger fabric of education networks and nodes. The education system itself, higher education throughout the United States, is growing rapidly, and the ability here, it's basically a reciprocity. For the most part, universities and colleges and many of the institutions that are offering the courses that need to be added at various schools, rather than adding faculty, are available online, and they're available for the asking. That BellCurve Labs is an aggregator. That means that we pull together resources and we bring together resources under one shop or under one roof. That's what we do, is we help broker and put together those kinds of partnerships that allow for that. So, I know that there's a certain amount of vagary in what I had to say, but in fact, colleges and universities throughout the world are beginning to extend themselves. They want to interact and utilize and share each other's resources. Never before have we had the capacity to do this, because we've been restricted and constricted by brick and mortar, synchronous kind of approaches to education. Using methodologies like HyperDocs, using the availabilities of MOOCs that are opening up all over, and online education that is being opened and offered for free, as in the MOOCs, through very, very many universities, and brokering them together is available to the world. It's just a matter of being able to have the channels of communication in which to create those partnerships. But the partnerships are in everyone's best interest, and all universities and colleges are very, very interested in seeking that. You have resources in your universities. Everyone listening to this has specific resources that no one else has, that someone else wants somewhere. And it's having that neural network and having that broker, those groups that can help broker and put together these partnerships is what's really key to doing it. If we all sort of en masse go after each other, it will be probably a free for all. But, and I hope that's not what it becomes, but I think these opportunities are available to all. And that's why we at BellCurve Labs are working with SKE Society to help broker and put together those partnerships and build on them.
Thank you, Bill. A question to Kelly is that once again from Dr. Poddar. Should digital learning be a substitute to conventional learning systems or a supportive one? And he adds, is there a need for a paradigm shift in the teaching learning in the class?
That's a great question. And I do think that it's not replacing it, it's enhancing it. So as we have support of digital learning, just using it purposefully to allow our students to learn how to learn with the information and to learn how to interact globally. One of our big goals with this work is to create global communication and collaboration, because I noticed there's another question in the chat that says, if online teaching is going to be a reality, is education going to become global and schools of third world countries will cease to exist? I can't predict the future, but I can predict that we have an opportunity to collaborate with schools anywhere around the world in this way, and to really close that information gap if that collaboration is there and the technology is available to do that. Bill, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you did a splendid job. But I do agree with the point that you made. Universities and institutions, education institutions from primary through post-secondary through graduate school are all looking to expand their menu, to expand the services that they provide students. And it's through the exchange and the open exchange and interchange of these resources globally that we're going to optimize and maximize. We've all been siloized, okay? We know that. And we all have been in our caves, and we've been operating in these caves for a couple hundred years now. Fortunately, COVID has actually driven us out of the cave. And we now have to get out, and we need to use, as they say in America, your bullhorn, and we need to speak with other people. We need to reach out to other institutions and say, here's what I have to offer. What can you offer us in exchange? How can we affect these kinds of exchanges? I taught a number of years for University of California at Berkeley. And we have since then started to work with their extension group to provide amazing certification courses to individuals in India. We've been having conversations for about a year, and we're not quite there yet. But those kind of courses are available. Stanford University has courses and certification. And the discussions need to begin, and they don't begin until we have the dialogues don't begin until we have two parties to have those conversations. So, we would love to engage universities and colleges in the United States with universities and colleges in India. All we need is for those who are interested to step up and to help us build the platform from which this happens. Basically, a HyperDoc for universities and colleges to interact and communicate and to build their relationships.
Right. And I would just add, Bill, that, with technology at your fingertips, you can really learn anything. Any one of us can learn anything that we need to learn. But the conditions for which we learn can be created by the teacher. And we have an opportunity to do that for students. And when we do that globally, when we collaborate globally, to create powerful conditions for students across the world for learning that are motivating, that are inspiring, that provide feedback and outcomes and dialogue and collaboration, then we can really change the world of education.
Thank you so much. Some more questions. One important question asked by a member of the management. She wants to know how how to effectively evaluate teaching learning using technologies, because we found that it's very easy to circumvent, or it's very difficult to actually grade students. A lot of our students are don't have, like, let's say, a laptop, they'll have a mobile phone. So if we have to give a question, an exam, we send a PDF of the question paper, and then they write it down by hand, and then they click a picture and they send the picture to us. There's a problem of grading here. There's a problem of integrating it with Google Classroom and stuff like that. And also at the end, we don't know whether they've actually copied the answers off of somewhere. So the question is how to effectively evaluate a student's learning in using technology in a time when it's difficult to actually check it physically.
I can speak to that a little bit if that's okay. Bill, we've had this same discussion in our school district, that traditional forms of grading have been challenging, and we've had to really change the way that we assess learners. And so that goes, and it starts with that application piece. And in the application piece, we're changing the way we assess students. As I was explaining in the lesson design, it's explore, explain, apply. Students are asked more open-ended questions, and then they're asked to create or show what they know they're learning, utilizing the tools, so that the teacher now has a variety of responses, but around whatever that rubric is for what they were being asked to do. And a rubric is something that we use here in America, which is a checklist for what we're looking for in the application. And I'm going to share really quick my screen. One more thing that could be of resource to people. Our HyperDoc website has online courses, and we have a course on just assessment and how to deliver assessment differently. When you go to the courses for how to assess your remote learners here, and you click Explore More, it starts with strategies for feedback, shifting from feedback to feed forward. And so this is an overview of the course, and this is a free course that anyone can access. And then here's strategies for how to do that, how to increase student motivation remotely, which is the beginning of assessment when you're providing feedback, how to check for understanding with various tools, how to do formative assessment, and then summative. And so this is the show what you know, the several different ways. And there's several examples of what that might look like in a classroom that could be adaptable for any age. So I hope that helps to respond to that.
And if I might just add one more piece to it, one of the methodologies that has been, we found successful in recent years throughout America in changing this whole testing and accountability paradigm, in part, is that rather than have a single kind of a product outcome that's evaluated using very, very, if you will, very limited metrics in terms of knowledge, in terms of informing the teacher and instructor, simply yielding numbers, which don't necessarily lead to better understanding of the learner and better understanding for the teacher of the teaching and pedagogy, is a thing called portfolio assessment. And so in activities in which students are asked to do a problem-solving kind of an activity that is multi-step, they're not simply graded on a summative thing in terms of what the final product looks like, which could be a presentation of one form or another, but they actually bring together in front of the teacher a portfolio that represents all of the work that they've done, the methods that they've used, notes that they've taken, and they address that. They actually prepare themselves to be able to talk about the process that they used in reaching a conclusion. It's actually what people do in business. It's actually what scientists do in the laboratory.
Yes.
Okay? It's actually what happens in the real world. It's what engineers do. And if we start asking students to subject themselves to assessment and to start to modify their ability to understand their own learning, in an accessible way, using like a portfolio kind of assessment, we can move their education and the quality of their education, and we can further it much, much more. We also use a thing called holistic scoring, which uses a rubric, like Kelly said, and from the rubric, we use various items that are listed, their criterion within a rubric, and they have different levels of validity and weight, and different weighting levels. And we use those to come up with a holistic number for the entire project. Has the project been thoroughly explained? It's worth X number of points. Has it been demonstrated, and can the students clearly explain the processes through which they achieved the outcome? Is the student critical of the outcome? Okay, various things in which we can look at, and we do this very much the same way as a scientist might be working with other scientists, or as an engineer might be working with other engineers. It's an evaluative process that helps with developing and building processes rather than just yielding a grade or an outcome or a pass or a fail. It is, at this point, not as highly defined, it's not as definitive, and for some people it may not be very comfortable, but it's a process that as we get better with portfolio assessment, I've seen and I've watched and I've supervised teachers who have been absolute wizards at doing portfolio assessments with their students, and the student growth and the efficacy that these students build, their ability to think critically and to express themselves creatively and to act creatively and to work collaboratively with others are marvelous. And what three skills are more important in the workplace than those? If we only are testing for content knowledge, we're missing a lot of it. We can always anchor, okay? We can always throw in a test. We can always throw in an objective test, okay? I never say that we only have one form of assessment. So I would be one to say use conventional methods, but augment them with more enlightened and more modern approaches. Grow as a teacher, and your students will grow as learners.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Sorry. Kelly, you had something to add? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just agreeing. And then there was another question that came directly to me that I just wanted to address really quickly about as a student, they're asked to sit for an online class for a long time and to listen. And so are there any tips to gain construction for online classes? And yes, there are. A couple things that come to mind is, as a teacher myself, I've had to teach other teachers all year, and I'll work with a couple hundred teachers at a time. And even though there's stuff for me to teach, I'm creating that space in, let's say, a 1-hour presentation, where traditionally I start with the teaching and I package the resources similar to how I did today and give them to all the teachers. But then I always build in time for breakout rooms and collaboration. And in Zoom, we can easily create a space where you can do breakout rooms that are choice-based, breakout rooms that are specifically designed by groups to work on something. And when they're asked to go in there, I'll set that up in the presentation. So first, here's what we're learning. Here's what we're discussing. Here's some stuff to review. Go into the breakout room and discuss. It's sort of like in a classroom when you create norms around global collaboration in a table group. Who might be the facilitator? How might they share out? But there's something that I learned as well early on this year, was that standing and talking for an hour was not going to engage my learners all year. So when it come down to an hour, we built in 2 breakout rooms within 1 hour with teaching in between, so that people in the Zoom call are engaged with the content. And then there's some practice around this, and I have videos to show it, but when you come back, you can unpack some of what was learned and then move on to the next topic. But I think the most skilled teachers are getting the students to pull the information out of them so that they can show what they know in many different ways.
Thank you. So one question for Bill that the principal wanted to ask you is how do we, there is a divide between the academia and the curriculum that the academia teaches and the society at large and the industry. And so she wanted to know how we would be using autonomy as a solution to bridge that gap.
If I understand, the question is how we use autonomy to bridge the gap between what we're teaching in academia and what's required in the workplace?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think there are a couple of answers to that. First is taking a look, and Milind and I had worked for quite some time, actually in India, on what are the skills and attributes that are required in the workplace. There is tremendous amount of data, and there are actual curriculums on that, on specifically what are the skills, so that the skills that are needed in the workplace really need to be imported into academia. And the ways that we bridge this gap is by creating dialogue. One of the things that we would have done, but we unfortunately, COVID and other things have prevented it from happening. We would be working with communities in India and talking with local industry to look at what are the attributes that are required in the workplace, what are the skills that are required in the workplace, so that we could then import those and create the dialogue between the local colleges and institutions of education and the plants and the manufacturers and those large employers, so that there would be a direct dialogue between them. And so that autonomy that's needed would follow naturally. That the students would bridge that gap in the classroom, and there wouldn't have to be. I mean, what happens right now is there's a huge skills gap, and the skills gap in India is as wide as it gets, because students leave school in India and they go to work. And in India, you have one of the widest skills gaps between your students leaving your colleges and universities and and secondary schools and going into the workplace. And so the retraining is very high. That's why we worked and we have been partners with ACT and their workplace programs and their workplace development. So I think that the short answer to this is through partnerships. It's through developing the finding out, and much of this is actually academic, is available information. We get that information. We've actually got it from ONET, from the U.S. Department of Labor, that allows us to know what are the specific kind of skills that are needed for specific type of jobs. And then what we do is we teach that, we develop a curriculum and import that into the classroom. And that's the short and long answer for how we believe we can close the gap on this.
Thanks, Bill. Just a follow-up question from the previous discussions that we were having with Kelly. Excuse me.
Here I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This is a question to both paper presenters. At the outset, I would like to appreciate the beautiful and wonderful papers that both the so-called resource persons have presented, and there was an appreciable one. But I have a small question over here. That World Health Organization says that 3.7 billion people have no internet access, and the majority are in the poorer countries, where the need to spread information about how to combat COVID-19 is the most urgent and most important thing. Migrants and even the poorest are the most vulnerable to the virus. And more than 1 billion in the globe are currently locked out of the classrooms because of the quarantine measures. Now, no matter that teachers are running daily online classes and many of the children are simply cannot take part. Now, working from home is the only reality for the service sector workers and even for the administrators. But as figure shows that not all of them will be able to connect. Even then, they may find that their connectivity is affected by the sheer volume of the people using the web. Now, US-based M Labs, which monitors the global internet speeds, says that in spite of the reassurances that internet service providers, that networks are coping with the extra load and the broadband speeds have been slowing in some areas. Now, under these background here, so how do you overcome the digital divide between the developed and the underdeveloped countries?
That's a huge question. It's a question that is, to be quite frank, not exactly answerable. And the reason is that we're dealing right now with what I would call a scorched earth scenario. Right now, we are looking at a situation in which COVID is changing the way education is being and needs to be delivered and will be delivered. And at the same time, there are those have-nots and there are those who won't have access to online education. We need to continue to move ahead in the best ways that we possibly can, understanding that that equity will only come about. I often use the paradigm when I get on an airplane, which has been quite some time now. When I get in an airplane, I'm told by the hostess there that if oxygen should run low, that if I have a child next to me, I should take care of myself first, so that then I am well enough to take care and mind the child. So we are in a triage situation. We need to bring the benefits forward. We need to make broadband more available by making broadband better, by improving where we can, by capitalizing on the opportunities that exist and building on it. But we are certainly not, I don't have an answer, and I don't think anyone has a simple answer for solving such a complex problem. It's the nature of problems that mankind has always struggled with and probably always will struggle with. I think the answer is we roll up our sleeves, we do the best we can, we seek to succeed on all platforms that we can, and we build on those successes. It will be, as Chairman Mao said, the journey of a thousand miles begins with but one step. And so we need to just be taking those steps in that direction, mindful, empathic, and understanding that equity is what we want to achieve and what we're trying to, and we want to bring this to all people. But we don't have a universal global entity that is going to fund and finance this. We don't have the kind of universal international agencies that are, the UN is not what it was in the 60s. And so we don't have entities that are going to come forward with any kind of a magic potion in which we do this. It's going to take hard work, it's going to take grit, and it's going to take determination. And there's going to be a lot of pain along the way. We just have to face that. We're working in a scorched earth scenario, and we need to move forward as best as we can.
I think the SpaceX experiment with satellite internet is actually been going quite well. They've got up to 30 Mbps of internet speed in places in rural Africa and stuff like that. So I think we can expect technology to also start catching up with making technology available, with making internet available everywhere. So yeah, on that front. Just quickly, this is from the scenario of the Indian education. So in the Indian education, we have a very set routine kind of scenario. We have a syllabus, we go to class, we conduct the classes, and we, like you've shown us in that linear pattern, as Kelly was showing us. So the problem here that we found is that the freedom to explore is scary and confusing for students. And so how do we make it possible for them to be confident in their capacity to learn? Because they're always scared, like they're not sure that if this will come for the exam. So I don't know whether I should be wasting my time looking this up. So how would you answer that question?
We struggle with some of the same concerns. The students in our communities are taking advanced placement exams in order to get to higher universities, and the traditional methods of assessment are ingrained deeply into our grading systems. So thank you so much for that question, first of all. It is something that as a community needs to be talked about and decided upon and collaborated on, because on the flip side, we have seen an increase of students cheating on exams and not really showing their actual learning in the traditional assessments. And so some of that has come up as well. So now there's this need to reimagine how we do that. So two things. The first part of that question as well was about exploring and that being scary. We've seen that as well. Actually learning in this way is really rigorous and challenging to your brain in different ways. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because we've taught students how to do school well. And so sometimes when they try out something like this, they feel insecure and they're just looking for the right answer. And sometimes when you teach like this, it's all about finding more answers and having more questions. So my response is to take it very slow. We don't do this for every assignment. We try it sometimes for deeper learning that we're trying to get across, project-based learning, and do it step by step with your colleagues. That collaboration is key so that you can respond to your community together to see which steps are best for your community. Also, through our HyperDocs Academy, we offer coaching and support for communities that are trying to develop lessons in this way. So we're available for support and problem solving along the way as well.
Thank you so much. Just a follow-up question to that. With the amount of work that is required to conduct a HyperDoc class, in India, we have a problem of facing a student-teacher ratio that is quite high. So it implies that there is much more work and much more time that has to be spent guiding the students. So how would you suggest a solution, and will technology be used in a particular way to help mitigate that kind of problem?
Actually, it's really helpful to have your lessons hyperdoced for larger groups of classrooms. I've taught classrooms of 500 down to 100, down to 10, to small groups with HyperDocs, because it's all available to everyone to access. So it kind of comes down to that delivery. Once you've created your vision for your lesson and you've designed it, then the next decision is how will you deliver instruction from the HyperDoc. I taught a university class on HyperDocs on how to design them. So we had a syllabus and weekly lessons that were accompanied by weekly synchronous lessons. So the lesson was delivered to 150 teachers synchronously through Zoom from the HyperDoc and recorded for those who didn't attend and linked back up. And then we also created a separate one that was the application of learning for them. And it's very easy to push that out to as many people as you need to, or as small of group as you need to. So I hope that helps to explain that workflow a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. It helps clarify that point. And finally, from the main questions list, there is a question about openness and proprietary systems. So we have, Google Docs, which is proprietary, and there is a problem of vendor lock-in. There is a problem of non-ownership of content. So even when Bill was talking about, the universities opening up, on one hand, we have a problem of lock-in with technologies, with giants that we cannot compete with. And then there's a question of ownership. And then the second, we also want to control access, because it is a question of income generation, and keeping everything open might be a problem for income generation from the college's side. So how do we resolve this through technology in a proper, what would be the perfect paradigm to look at this as, open versus closed systems of education?
As far as your HyperDoc design goes, I would just encourage you to use the adopted curriculums that you have, and use the HyperDoc as just the delivery method. So it could be, but if you have digital curriculums that are being implemented in your university, then that would be only accessible to the students in the university. and you would just use the HyperDoc as the pathway to get there, or as the pathway to collaborate on a topic, or as a pathway to provide a condition for applying learning in different ways and directions for that. But as far as your digital curriculums that you have adopted and paid for and are licensed under the university, then students would access that as a part of the lesson process, but it's not on the HyperDoc per se.
Understood. Just a few more questions have come in, very sorry. One is, how will artificial intelligence replace teaching, and what are the problems that teachers can face if from tomorrow artificial intelligence takes over the job of teaching?
I'll start off on that. I think there's a role for AI in education. I think there is a very valuable role, but it's as a tool and not necessarily as a teacher. One of the of the various areas in which I've read prognostications and reports on what professions are most likely to be supplanted in the near future, the next 10, 15, 20 years by AI. And those professions that are called the helping professions, teaching and nursing, that require, on our particular psychometric examination, the ACE profiler, a very high S quotient, okay, are very likely. So for example, it's anticipated that it's very likely that the business of being a doctor, an MD, is going to be diminished greatly within the next 20 years, because much of the work that an MD can do could be done more efficiently and more quickly, particularly the diagnostic parts using AI. However, nurses, which are required because they are not high tech, they are high touch. They have to interact with patients on a moment-to-moment basis. They have to read things that AI is not going to be able to read, which is the pallidness of someone's skin, or the depth of their breath at a given moment. And they can read people. They have intuitions and they have capacities to work with people and to affect people in ways that AI is not going to be able to supplant. Teachers, very similarly, teachers are diagnosticians. When you're working in a classroom, it's like working in a laboratory, and you're paying attention to all of these little, if you will, lab rats that are students, that are your students, and you're getting data and feedback from them constantly, and you have to respond to it. And it's the human touch, and it's the capacity to humanly empathize and be empathic that is really key. So I think that it will augment. I think that AI is going to become an incredibly powerful tool within a classroom. But I think the human touch and the interaction between human beings is essential. It's something that we actually need. That's why, when you look at how the nucleus accumbens, or the M drive of the human brain works, we notice that it lights up more, and that it is the dopaminergic system is ignited more by human interaction than it is by any other interaction, including with machines, including even with video games. So there is a basic human need that could never, that I don't believe could be offloaded to computers. And at the same time, AI, I think, is wonderful, and I think it's a valuable tool.
Thank you so much, Bill and Kerry. I'm sorry, there are lots of questions coming in, but we have no more time. Our next session is going to begin soon, and we've already overshot by 15 minutes because everybody's really happy with the presentations. They really have a lot of questions. So I apologize to our audience who have not been able to pose their questions, but you are always free to contact them directly. Just send an email and they'll be happy to help. So with that, I'll now request the principal, Dr. Shobha Naik, to welcome the Vice-chancellor who has joined the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Pia. We have to proceed now, Pia.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Yeah. So once again, warm greetings to everyone. After the successful completion of the session of remarkable educationalist of the United States, Mr. Bill Radulovich, and socially aware Madam Miss Devi, Hilton, I am here to welcome our esteemed guest of honor, the resource person of this one-day international webinar, Honorable Vice-chancellor of Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Dr. D.T. Shirke, sir. On behalf of our SK Society's RPD family, as principal and also as head of the Department of Marathi, I am privileged to welcome you, sir. At the beginning of the session, I express my earnest gratitude towards you for accepting our invitation and providing us the strength to stand in such a calamity with this very special and important webinar. We are we are very lucky to have you amongst us, sir, in the real picture of the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of us are panicking due to the uncertain educational scenario. Students are losing interest in learning through a computer, and parents are afraid to admit their children into colleges. Our colleagues have expressed a lot of concern when it comes to teaching in the online mode. We are constantly bombarded by shocking news. However, despite the adverse conditions, Shivaji University has achieved a fantastic of NAC score, the score which is higher than JNU Delhi. Actually, it was a great treat for every common person. Everyone I spoke to that day was delighted with the news. As an alumni representative from this area, I must thank you, sir, for making us to feel proud. But at the same time, people will now have greater expectations of you. So we too are looking forward to listening to your valuable insights on the topic challenges and opportunities in higher education during and after COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I would like to request Pierre to hand over the window to our resource person, Honorable VC Sir, Dr. D.T. Shirke, sir. Thank you.
Before we hand it over, ma'am, we'll just have a short introduction of the VC, sir, and I request Dr. Abhay Patil to introduce our
Yeah, please.
Namaskar. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure and privilege to introduce an eminent personality to all of you. It is an honor that he accepted our humble request to be the resource person of today's international webinar. He is none other than the Honorable Vice-Chancellor of Shivaji University, Dr. D.T. Shirke, a personality very well known in India and abroad. Sir has completed his post-graduation in statistics from Shivaji University in the year 1987 and also qualified UGC JRF in the same year. He has served in Shivaji University at various capacities. He began his career as a lecturer and was promoted as the professor and head of the Department of Statistics. He has a rich experience of more than 30 years in teaching and research. He has also been an inspiration to thousands of students who look up to him as a mentor and guide. Under the guidance of Sir, 14 students have been conferred their PhD degree, and presently 3 students are pursuing their PhD under him. Sir has worked as principal investigator and co-principal investigator for 9 UGC-sponsored research projects with a total inlay of approximately rupees 100 lakhs. Sir has also served as external referee for the evaluation of PhD theses of various Indian universities. He has also served as external referee for international projects as well as for international and national journals. He has a total of 80 national and international publications and more than 600 citations to his credit. Honorable Vice-Chancellor has more than 15 years of administrative experience and has served as various capacities, like he has served as the Registrar of Shivaji University for more than 2 years. He served as officiating Pro Vice-Chancellor, Shivaji University in the year 2017, and Pro Vice-Chancellor from 2017 to 2020. He worked as the coordinator of UGC Special Assistance Program, coordinator of University Industry Interaction Cell, coordinator of Statistical Consultancy Unit. Sir has contributed significantly in the development of Shivaji University while working on various statutory bodies and committees of the university, like Board of Deans, Board of Research, Board of PG Education, Board of University Teaching and Research, Board of Examinations. He also has research collaborations with several universities like Florida International University, University of Alabama, IIT Kanpur, IIT Mumbai, Central University of Rajasthan, Bangalore University Karnataka, Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, Deemed University Karnataka. He also has academic associations with other universities and institutes like Indian Statistical Institute Kolkata, KLE Medical University Belgavi, Mysore University Mysore, Karnataka University Dharwad, Savitribai Phule University Pune, North Maharashtra University Belgaum. He is the recipient of Best PG Teacher Award from Shivaji University. He has also been awarded with Summer Research Fellowship by the Academy of Indian Sciences. He is the recipient of Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Fund Award for Academic Excellences. Sir has also visited various countries like USA, Switzerland, Thailand, Germany, Singapore, Malaysia. Till today, Sir delivered more than 50 talks at national and international conferences and workshops. The list of his works and achievements goes on and on. He is too great personality to be introduced in such a short span of time. Having given a very brief introduction, I, Dr. Abhay Patil, IQAC Coordinator of RPD College, once again extend a very warm welcome to our today's resource person, Honorable Vice-Chancellor of Shivaji University, Dr. D.T. Shirke. I welcome you, sir. Thank you. Over to you, Pierre.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Yeah. So good morning to all of you. Thanks, Dr. Abhay Patil, for kind words and kind introduction. Thanks to Principal of the Rani Parvati Devi College for inviting me to this international webinar. Thanks to the entire team of the college, the management, the fellow participants, friends. Before I formally begin to my talk, I must appreciate interaction with these two eminent experts, today's experts, Dr. Bill and Ms. Kelly. I think they not only touch to the things which are happening in US, but try to touch some of the points from our own country, India, because questions were like that. So it was nice listening to both of the experts. I really enjoyed, may not be the whole, but maybe last about 40 minutes I was there. It was fabulous and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Friends, now it's time to again land to our own country and see what is the state, what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities that are available to we the stakeholders in the Indian higher education system. So I request you to allow me to share my screen.
Of course, sir, go ahead. You can just start sharing.
I hope the screen is visible and
Yes, sir.
I don't see any technical issue, right?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. So a lot of challenges, I think, have been discussed in today's two sessions as well. I could see some of the opportunities also were explored. We had interacted with the fellow participants. Good questions also were there. What is my agenda then? You can see some overlap between the speakers that already talked, and I may speak on some of the issues. So agenda is very brief. I will rush through my presentation, and I will give more time on discussion because that is what is required, I think. I'm covering only 3 points. The first point, Indian higher education system. And I intentionally put some slides on Indian higher education system just to know the facts and figures to the experts. What are the challenges? Challenges have already been pointed out, spelled out, discussed. I may touch some of them. Some of them could be new also. And what are the opportunities, and then conclude. Before I go for actual introduction, everyone will agree. It's not that only the education system has got impact, but you hardly find any of the sectors across the globe which has no impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So it could be a social life, it could be agriculture sector, it could be a transport sector, tourism, sports, and of course, on the top of all is economy, the global economy, and of course, Indian economy. Each of them, they have adverse impact due to this particular pandemic. And of course, education is not an exception, right from primary, secondary, and higher education system. A huge impact is being seen since the last 1 year, maybe more than 1 year. So let's see some facts and figures. Before that, let's appreciate the efforts taken by our teachers against all odds. They have been imparting knowledge to the buddy students. Let's appreciate the students also. Against all odds, they are trying to grab. No alternative. They are trying to grab as much as possible from the side of, you can say, the teaching side, as well as from the society side, and wherever knowledge is available, they're trying to grab it. Staff, yes, they are more punctual, they are devoted, and they are taking care of health of almost all the stakeholders. And on the top of this, our government, our central government, Ministry of Education, state government, Director of Higher Educations, and our principals, and who is not there, who is not caring. Everyone is caring about the faculty and the students. So let's appreciate first, in spite of all issues, these people are putting a lot of efforts in trying to bring the things on the right track. Now, when it comes to Indian higher education system, I would like to share some of the facts and figures with the experts, the speakers, as well as my own colleagues in the country. We have about 993 universities across the country, but they are not of the same type. So we have got what are called as the central universities, directly funded by the central government. We have got Central Open University for distance education. We have got institutions of national importance. We also have state public universities, and so on and so forth. So we have got about 993 universities, and in the last 5 years, a good number of private universities are coming into this particular service sector. Education is a service sector, and good number of private universities are coming. In Maharashtra itself, more than 10 universities have constituted during last 1 or 2 years, I can say. Now, having even this particular big picture of universities, what is the distribution of these universities? What kind of education they are providing? You can see this particular pie chart. About 548 universities are general. When I say general, they are imparting education in arts, commerce, and science, I can say. And there are about 142 universities exclusively on languages. So if you both put together, out of 996,000, there are about 700 universities. They are imparting education for the typical arts faculty, commerce faculty, science faculty, and languages. So this is the typical 70% of the universities are imparting the education in this particular domains. And the rest of the universities, yes, there are certain universities dedicated to agriculture, certain universities dedicated to medical, management, technical, and so on and so forth. Our universities are, out of these universities are about 300 universities are having an affiliating structure. Means they are affiliated colleges with them. And how many affiliated colleges are there for these 300, about 300 universities? About 40,000 colleges are there. They are connected with these 300, about 300 affiliating kind of universities. And their further distribution, you can see, number of colleges between 0 to 100, there are 160 such universities. They are having between 0 to 100, 59 between 100 to 200, and 200 to 336. But you can see that there are universities which have got more than 500 colleges affiliated to them. Such 13 universities are there. I can say in Maharashtra, I can take Mumbai University, I can take Pune University. In Karnataka, you can have a Bangalore University. I think they are falling in this particular category. And on the top of this, out of these 40,000 colleges, 60% of colleges are located in rural area. I think this is the point which we should not overlook, because we have been talking on issues. And the first issue is that 60% colleges are located in rural India, I would say. And if you take the distribution of these colleges, there are only 14% colleges which are aided colleges, private aided colleges. There are about 22% colleges which are run by government, and there are 64% colleges, they are unaided colleges. When I say unaided colleges, government is not providing any funds as far as the tuition fees and all such kind of things are concerned. Okay, the students have been supported with some kind of scholarship, free ships, and so on and so forth. But most of these private unaided colleges, some of them are professional colleges running, say, management faculty or medical faculty or engineering and technology faculty, and so on and so forth. So there are good number of private unaided colleges in the Indian higher education system. So with this, what is enrollment? So enrollment is 373 lakhs of students enrolled in the Indian higher education system. See, the figure looks very attractive, but in my subsequent slides, you can say that there's a huge part of the society who is deprived of this particular higher education system. And out of this particular 373 lakhs, about 80% of the students are from UG categories. 80% students are from UG. Means basically they are students of certain colleges who are imparting education for UG courses, or some private, unaided, and so on and so forth. And there are hardly 10% which are from postgraduate, and about 10% from the rest of the programs. So UG program is, in fact, is the program of higher education of Indian higher education system, I would say, where 80% of the students are taking education. Out of this, I don't know whether my slide is visible to you because it could be overlap. A good number of students from arts, the top, that is the highest number of students are coming from Bachelor of Arts program, followed by Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Commerce, and so on and so forth. So again, I'm touching to that point that in our entire scenario, you can see that more number of, for example, in 2014-15, we have got 98 lakhs of students. 98 lakhs of students who were taking education for the BA program in arts, as compared to 42 lakhs for science, 33 lakhs for the commerce. And you have a good number for engineering and technology as well, around 42 lakhs. The figures are somewhere around the same for the rest of the years, maybe a few lakhs here, 1 or 2 lakhs here or there. So again, you can see that the UG program followed by Bachelor of Arts program. And 98 means, if I compare with the earlier my figure, 373 lakhs of students, about 25% of the students are falling in this particular program. So they are taking education for BA in different courses, subjects, I would say. Having said that, though 373 lakh students are taking education, what is our gross enrollment ratio? If you consider 1,000 students in the age category 18 to 23, only 263 students are part of this particular system. The rest of them are not part of this particular Indian higher education system. So we are providing education only for 26.3% of the population falling in the category 18 to 23 years. So we have to reach to me in the next maybe 10 years, we are targeting to reach to 50% and so on and so forth. So this gives a clear idea that we have to do a lot for this particular age group. 26.3 is not a very big number. In fact, the pace at which this number is increasing is also not good. If you consider the last 10 years, we could have maybe about 5 to 7% increase you could have witnessed. So this is the state of Indian higher education system as far as GR is concerned. And what about teachers? To impart the education to all these students, we have about 14,16,300 teachers across the country. So if you consider the ratio, it is approximately one teacher is imparting education to 26 students. Not bad, I would say. 1:26 is not bad. So this is the state of the Indian higher education system, some facts and figures. So having given these facts, of course, these figures are taken from All India Survey for Higher Education 2018-19. Now, who are the stakeholders of the system? Indian higher education system stakeholders are, we have a good number of regularity bodies. We have got good number in the sense that if you consider arts, commerce, science, then UGC is a regulatory body for us. If you consider pharmacy, engineering, technology, then AICTE is body for that. If you consider medical education, then Medical Council of India is the body for that, and so and so. So we have got a good number of regulatory bodies. We have got government controlling on the entire higher education system. We have academic administrators and executives who are administrating this particular higher education system. We have members of authorities and bodies. What does it mean? It means that any college, for example, this particular college, Rani Parvati Devi College, is affiliated college to Karnataka University Dharwad. And Karnataka University Dharwad, whatever decisions they take, the decisions are taken by bodies and authorities in the university. So it could be an academic council, it could be a board of studies, it could be a management council, it could be a senate, and so on and so forth. So they are also stakeholder of this particular entire thing. The curriculum that is being taught in Rani Parvati Devi College is approved by these bodies at the university level. And once they approve this particular curriculum, college has very little scope or no scope to change the curriculum. So this is the structure we are having in the entire education system in India. We have a management of educational systems. For example, this particular college is managed by one body. Similarly, most of the privately aided, privately unaided colleges are managed by the managements of the respective trust and bodies. We have heads of the departments and director of the schools. everywhere in this particular structure. And I think this is a similar thing elsewhere also. And then we have stakeholders, teachers, students, and of course, parents. And the main stakeholder is, of course, the student. The center is students in the entire higher education system. The entire system is moving around this particular center. So we have to more focus, we have to give more focus on the stakeholder who is student of this particular system. Now, coming back to the challenges, some of the challenges which already have been spelled out, discussed at length, I would say, in the morning 2 sessions. At the cost of repetitions, I may touch to some of them. The first, I think, challenge is online teaching. I will come to that particular point in more elaborated way. Then, so teaching is from the teacher's side, the learning from the student side. The learning is e-learning. The students are facing issues with e-learning. There are challenges as far as evaluation part is concerned. Some of the questions were there as far as evaluation is concerned. So we have some issues with evaluation. Research is a part and parcel of the entire higher education system. Issues and challenges are there in the research as well. Someone was talking about what about co-curricular, extracurricular, and extension activity. Entire world is almost stopped. We don't have the freshers welcome function. We don't have, let's say, a well-wishing program for outgoing batch. We don't have any celebration. We don't have cultural programs. We don't have any kind of activity that we were proposing. And this is happening from last 1 year, maybe more than 1 year. Then the challenge is institutional governance. So governance of any institution, it could be a college, it could be a university, it could be the director of higher education. They are suffering a lot. They are having a big challenge. What kind of challenge? I have one slide on that. I will touch to that. And then resource mobilization and management. How to mobilize resources in this particular typical situation. What kind of ways we can think of the funds can be generated. The most of the funds are coming from students. Except the salary of the aided colleges, the funds are being taken from students only in the form of tuition fee, in the form of examination fee, and some other fees, you can say. So these are the issues because students in these particular situations are not able to pay even tuition fees, 100% tuition fees. So many issues are there. So these are some of the issues. But what are the issues of online teaching? I will touch to each of the points that I just had listed in my earlier slide. The first thing which I would say is that there is no formal training to the teacher how to teach online. All of a sudden, teachers were asked to switch to online teaching. See, we have been teaching, we have been in the profession of teaching since many years, many decades, but our teaching pedagogy was face-to-face. So you will enter into the class, use the board, or you just have a dialogue with the students. All of a sudden, we were asked to switch to the online teaching. And how to teach online? Pedagogy for online teaching itself is a big issue, which we never thought of, but we started teaching. If we are not trained how to teach online, do we expect that we are satisfying our stakeholder, that is student? I'm doubtful. And that is the biggest challenge. We are not satisfying our student 100% due to this online teaching because the teachers have not been trained for that. You may say that why they are not trained? Because we did not even imagine that we may have to face this situation in due course of time. In the month of February 2020, we did not imagine that in the month of March or April of the same year, we have to switch from the class to an online. And that is the biggest issue in this particular situation. And that is pedagogy means what are the ways and means of teaching online? Is it that you stand before the camera and you start talking? Is it that? If you stand before the camera and start talking, how long you should continue? For example, now I am giving my talk. Nobody's around here. I can't say anyone's face. Fortunately, some of the videos are on. Otherwise, I have to see my own laptop screen only. There is no one to whom I can interact emotionally, I would say. Whether they are getting the things what I'm saying, whether I'm in line, what I'm going to I'm presenting, nothing I can visualize. But I have to keep on saying, And in our situation, we have got about 48 to 60 minutes a class. And just imagine that a teacher is teaching 60 minutes continuously. See, when you are in a class, and if you are using a board, at least you get a few seconds to switch to the board, few seconds to keep mum and to write something on a board, few seconds to wipe out the board, few seconds to ask the students to read whatever is written on the board. Nothing of that sort is going on. We will have to keep on saying, okay, some people are using PowerPoints, yes, but having shown the PowerPoints, again, you have to speak on that. You don't just simply ask a student, read for, say, 5 minutes, I will come back. I think this hardly happens. I think if you tell students that I will not be there for 5 minutes, I think in 2 minutes, students will disappear from the entire community of this particular forum of teaching. So this is how the things are going on. The existing curriculum, sorry for the design, word design was there. The curriculum, what we are using to teach is not designed for online teaching. The curriculum that is required for online teaching needs a separate thought on that. What are the points that you really want to cover in the curriculum? What are the points which you ask students to come up on their own? What are the points on which you would be supplying resources, and so on and so forth? Such thought was not given. The old curriculum which we were using for face-to-face teaching, classroom teaching, the same curriculum we are using for the online teaching. And just imagine then how the teachers are finding very difficult to cope up with this particular situation. But they are not able to visualize why this is happening. This is happening because, number one, we are not trained. Number two, what we are being taught to the students is not designed properly for this particular pedagogy. It was designed for the face-to-face teaching, and that is the thing. Difficulty in knowing reception. It is very difficult how much students are getting when you start teaching online. See, we have a class of 100 students. We have a class of 120 students. We also have a class of 5 students. So the class size varies from program to program, from year to year, from faculty to faculty, and so on and so forth. The location issues, I'm talking about location issues for a teacher. You can't imagine that teacher has got a residence where exclusive a room is available where he can start his lecture, online lecture. Now he has to find one suitable place over there. It's difficult to even come to a college and start lecturing from college, because in college you have to occupy the classroom. And then how many teachers can have an independent classroom where they can start teaching? That is also there. So such issues are there. Technology issues, I think now it is taken granted that these teachers are well trained in technology also. They know each and everything, and they were asked to go on a class, online class, and they started teaching. So there are issues in technology also. Lack of technical support. Who is going to support you? Who is telling you that what LMS you should use? Who is going to use the kind of LMS and kind of the facilities available in that LMS? Because no formal training. And difficulty in paying attention to the entire class. Yes, it is very difficult. So these are the major issues I'm saying when you start online teaching. You started online teaching and the entire teaching community is suffering from these particular issues. I have already appreciated against all such odds, they have been teaching to our fellow students. Yes, there are some strengths, there are some weaknesses, there are opportunities and challenges. This particular slide is taken from one of the papers by Shivangi Diwan. I am just throwing some of the points. The weaknesses, strength, I think I will leave apart because if strengths are there, you can enjoy the strengths. But what are the weaknesses? I have covered a few of them. Technical difficulties. learners' capability and confidence level, time management, distraction, frustration, anxiety, and so on and so forth, and lack of personal physical attention. I have already listed. And then what are the challenges? Challenges, unequal distribution of ICT infrastructure. I think you discussed a lot on this particular point in the morning session. And there were questions on this particular thing. Quality of education, yes, it is hampering, I would say. Digital literacy for all the stakeholders, digital divide. Those who are having wonderful infrastructure are there, and those who are having no infrastructure are also there. And technology cost and obsolescence. So these were not visualized when we switched from face-to-face to online. So these are the challenges. Now, when you come to the students category, this is from a toolkit which is recently prepared by one of the universities in association with the Association of Indian Universities. This is available on website. This toolkit has got this particular slide. And I have just borrowed this slide from that particular toolkit. There are 4 categories of students. The first one is self-motivated student who can remain highly engaged and have the desired infrastructure. This is a student who doesn't suffer from anything. He has infrastructure, he has got motivated, and he is highly engaged. But you come to second category, is self-motivated student who can remain highly engaged, but the fellow doesn't have desired infrastructure, and he is the most sufferer. The category 2 student is the most sufferer. Category 3 student, students with average interest, those who are having average interest in a regular class due to their inhibitions, however, motivated to engage in online classes due to lesser social anxiety and more engaging multimedia content. So this is average student. And the 4th usually used to be there all over globe, students with low interest in general. They're not bothering much what is going on around as far as this entire teaching, learning, and evaluation processes are going on. So they don't perform well because they are least interested in this system. We have to bother about category 2 students. Category 1 students, yes, we don't have to bother about that particular student. Otherwise, he is managing the whole show. Okay, he has got infrastructure. The one who doesn't have infrastructure but would like to learn is the student who is the major sufferer. From the student's point of view, what are the issues? As have been discussed since morning, poor connectivity, affordability of devices they can't afford. Uninterrupted supply of electricity is also an issue. You might be having a data, you might be having a connectivity, but you don't have power. No conducive environment. See, 60% of the students are coming from rural area. I think students do not have a dedicated place in their house that they can calmly start learning. They have to find a suitable place where they can calmly learn. They can listen to the online lecture. And the photograph that I have showed is in fact published in Indian Express. The students have found some place where they can get connectivity, but this place doesn't have power. So once the power gets exhausted, they have to stop getting, they will have to stop in the process of learning. They have to come out of this particular process. Lack of attention is the issue. So timetable issue is again a big issue. There is no set timetable for a number of reasons. In your face-to-face teaching classes, and timetable is very, very much available. Everyone knows that. But I think my fellow teachers would agree, as far as the online teaching is there, no such timetable I could see. Some of the institution must be practicing, I understand. Lack of additional resources. You can't say that everything is available on the internet. A good novel, a good reference, which is available only in the library, which was published in 1960, it may not be available on the internet. Then they have to give up this kind of thing. There are such, because our libraries, the knowledge resources, if they are closed, You can imagine that the thousands and lakhs of books you don't have, even you can't touch them, you can't get connected with that particular the resources. So that is the biggest issue in and students and faculty, they are not now, it is not possible for them to get access to these books. The books are lying in the library for months together, Additional issues are there. Yes, science students, laboratory issue is there. Social science student, field visit issue is there. Project work issue is there. Library work is stopped. Language students, language lab is now closed. Then you don't have a dedicated software. Most of the softwares which are not open source software, if they are commercial software, licensed software, they are available in the premises only. And you can't use these softwares. It could be SPSS, you can say, the social science students are using. Now they can't use, for example. So such softwares are not being used by students, and they will not be able to get access to these softwares maybe for months together. You can imagine that how much loss they are incurring into. The mathematical tools, of course, the lack of social life. No institutional guidelines for online teaching, and I have already said that. And LMS platform. When it was said by anyone, maybe the management, maybe administrator, maybe by principal, maybe by government, they did not tell us that what kind of learning management system we should use. So, for example, someone is using Google Class, someone is using Zoom, someone might be using some other thing, someone might be using Moodle, and so on and so forth. Even within in a given college also, the kind of LMS which is being used from teacher to teacher, that may vary. Some teacher might be very comfortable with Zoom, but some other teacher would say that, no, I'm very comfortable with Google Classroom, so I will go for Google only. So students have to cope up with changing in the LMS also. We did not imagine that students have to really face the difficulties in matching this particular LMS. So there should be uniformity in using LMS, at least for the institution. One institution should use only one LMS. And you know that there are constraints as far as commercial LMS are concerned. And then we will have to bother about this LMS business very seriously. Evaluation, biggest issue. Thanks, at least regulatory bodies are intervening. UGC is telling us that don't conduct offline examination in the month of May. All offline examinations are stopped. We can't use. What does it mean? You have to go for online examination. Once you have to go for online examination, you have to bother about right from what kind of software you should use for online examination. Do you have such software? Then people are using Google Form. Google Form are designed for examination. Yes, people are using it. Google Classroom, they are using it. Whether someone is using Moodle, if someone is using any customized software, some institutions have got products from the market useful for conducting these examinations. But whether our students are familiar with this particular environment, they may not be. But we are asking them to appear for online examination. Right? Examination has become an unpredictable event. Whether the exam will be there or not, students are not knowing. You can imagine what is happening. It is not the question of only higher education system, it is question of even a 10th standard, 12th standard, and so on and so forth. No examinations means no study. See, last year we did not take examination for the even semesters as per UGC guidelines, except for the last year. So our second sem, fourth sem, there were no examinations. So have you ever thought on this issue? What students would have done during those periods that there is no examination? They stopped studying, that's all. So see, the knowledge you imparted, but it was not at all considered properly by the entire community because they were not given an opportunity to do that particular thing. The evaluation most of the times now is based on the MCQ. This is the only way of taking examination now. That too without proctoring. So you can imagine what kind of thing might be happening. You suddenly find inflation in scores of the students. You just compare the scores students got in the latest examination and the students as the score that in the earlier years the same student has got. You can see that means I think significant increase you can find in the score, significant increase. This is published in newspaper also. Okay. Conduct of examination, there are issues at the institute level, infrastructure, technology issues for the students, and of course, institute. How to conduct practical examination? Till this day, nothing is clear. Last year, we could not do it. This year, last year, some practicals were conducted by some institutes, so they could manage with that. But this year, not even single practical we could conduct for our science students. Now, if we did not allow them to touch to any experimental apparatus, how can we evaluate them on this particular aspect? And the final is possibilities of unfair practices as far as evaluation is concerned. I don't have to say much on this particular aspect. You can visualize what kind of practices student might be doing. These are the possibilities that in the evaluation. Research is hampered a lot. The labs are closed. Funds are, they have slowed down giving funds also. So entire research community is worrying what to do. Because those who have registered for PhD, they have to complete this particular work during a stipulated time. And for those stipulated time, they have to pay fees, huge fees. If they cannot complete the work in the given duration, they are given additional thing. But what about the fees? Yes, there are some guidelines from the UGC that the extension should be given, the fees should not be charged, and so on and so forth. But they are losing 1 year. They might lose more than 1 year as well. And in India, getting or having PhD is something like an eligibility to get a lecturership in the affiliated colleges, UG colleges. And for universities now, after 2021, if the person is not having PhD, is not considered to be eligible to teach in the university. So these kind of things are there. So I will not throw. Then I have already covered this. Event management is stopped, cultural activities are stopped, experiential learning is stopped, outreach activities are stopped, sport activities are stopped, leadership development activities are stopped. Everything is stopped for the student. The most sufferer is student, I would say. He is not suffering from only knowledge of the particular program, but these kind of all such things he is deprived of. Institutional governance, I say, administrative, how to perform day-to-day administrative activity is a big question. For example, in Maharashtra now, only 15%, 15% staff is allowed to join to the work. 85% is not allowed. So can you imagine that how would you manage the whole administrative business with 15% staff? And the person who comes today may not come tomorrow. So continuity issue is there. And who is sufferer? Again, sufferer is again either student or teacher or any stakeholder. For example, a new college is to be started from the next year. Application process is to be carried out. The scrutiny is to be carried out. Placing it before the bodies and authorities to be done. Everything is now stopped or at least getting delayed. So it may so happen that some of the colleges may not, some of the institutions may not start a new program, new subject, new course, new college, new branch. Everything will get delayed. So these kind of things that we don't have a good enough ICT infrastructure to cope up with the situation. We were not knowing. So we want everything should be done online. Yes, fine. But the fellow goes to home, what he can do from online. All his files are in the office. We could not digitize these particular things in the last couple of years. And now we think that had we digitalized this, I think the administration could have been very well these days. But we did not imagine this situation. So these kind of things are there. Development activities are stopped. Inlay, the funds receipt is almost stopped. You can just take a survey. The person from economics, it is a good exercise to take a survey that how the inlay of educational institutions are going on for the last 1 year. The results will be really surprising. And if this continues for a few more days, few more years, few more months, I think the situation will be very critical. Because unaided colleges, they have to pay the salaries of teachers from the fees that they get, from the scholarship that the government is giving for the students. If everything is stopped, then how to pay the salary is a big question. And now the big financial crunch you can see in the governance. And it is responsibility of the employer. Those who employ, they have to bother to pay the salary. No government will come forward, would say that now you pay from government funds. What is to be done? The big problem. And this is what the tuition fee issues are there. The same thing I said, private unaided colleges, universities face the funds problem. Tough time from students from weaker economical background. See, the parents do not have work. Parents are not getting wages. Running even day-to-day expenditure itself is a big problem. And finding funds from that and paying for the towards fees of higher education system is a really big problem. And this particular problem is a severe problem in most of the students. So you can think about this particular aspect also. So what are the major challenges? Just to sum up, to overcome the existing issues, what I already spelled out, then sustain the quality of processes, to recover the loss of students' community, to plan for future academic activities with given resources, and to keep the pace with the global changes. These are the major challenges. I'll have to rush through. Now, what are the opportunities? You have to improve the curricula. Now you will have to see that we are going to into online teaching program. Could be blended teaching program. I would come to that. Then what should be our curricula? So there we have to think about pedagogy of teaching. So you have to train the teachers. And once the teachers are trained, it is a kind of capacity building of the teacher community. The enhancing teachers' digital skills. Yes, we have to do that. We can't expect that every teacher knows everything as far as digital literacy is concerned. No, we have to train them. Maximizing the use of learning outside the classroom. We have to encourage the students. For example, one idea which came in my mind, see, last year, the second SEM and fourth SEM exams were not there. Fine. University followed the guidelines of UGC, AICTE, PCI, and all such bodies, and they proceeded further. But whether any college, any institution, any university thought of how to keep students engaged in this particular situation. For example, I will give a simple example. Suppose we have a student from social science, okay? And he's not supposed to now, he's not allowed to go for examination. He's not supposed to appear for the examination. Now he has to keep mum. Now suppose we come up with an activity saying that now the students are write an essay on this particular topic and submit it to the college, which will not carry any weight. Out of 100, at least 50 students would have done that. No, you don't have to do anything. No evaluation, but we ask them to do something. Why not we conducted a competition of essays so that many number of students would join this particular activity? So many such activities could have been planned, which activities are no credit activities, non-credit activities. There is no credit for the examination, at least. But there will be definitely encouragement to the students that they will be, at least we could keep them engaged by this or that activity. But we did not do that. No institution, no university, none of us did this particular activity. Such many activities could have been planned for those students who were not supposed to appear for the examination. And that we have to exploit. I think we have to explore that. We were talking about internet connectivity. Now we have to bother about that. So low-cost internet bundle programs have to come up. See, everything cannot be done by institutions, universities. Somewhere government intervention is required. So it is we have to tell them, this is where we need your support. What kind of technology? It is their concern. But now these students are facing, teachers are facing, institutions are facing Now you have to come forward and solve this problem. Development of customized LMS. Yes, now we have to think about what is our learning management system. Are we using Google Classroom all the while? Is it good to go for that? Or should we go for what is called as a Moodle, which is open source LMS? If at all we have to go for Moodle, we have to train the students. We have to train the stakeholders. We have to train the teachers also. And then think about that. And we have to customize it. Customize as per the program, as per the course, as per our needs, and so on. There is an opportunity of multidisciplinary studies. See, there is an online lecture. For example, this particular talk is being enjoyed by several hundred people. Why not one talk is arranged for all students of the institution? So, see, we are doing it. We were organizing certain lectures of eminent personalities in the face-to-face lectures in the eminent personalities in colleges, and we used to collect all the students in a auditorium, and then we asked the students to be there in the auditorium, and then we used to organize such classes. But now online, it's possible. So if it is possible, then why not, if we have, suppose, a music department, why not a classical Hindustani music classes are conducted for all the students of the institution? I think students from science would be happily joined to such program, which was otherwise not possible. Which was not possible otherwise in our face-to-face, because he used to go and he has to get associated with the whatever is given in his own program, right? But nowadays it is possible. Content development is, I think, big thing, soft and hard. So we have to develop the contents, resources. How to develop these contents? Again, training has to be given. The contents are to be developed by institution or by universities. We'll have to give a thought on that, because for all affiliated colleges, same program is there. Same curriculum is there. So why not university comes up with a common content for the entire university? For example, we used to have a textbook, but textbook is now limited. And online classes, textbook is of no use. Yes, as additional resources, you can have a textbook, but so many other things we have to do. For example, simulation experiments. Can we simulate the experiments? Can we, maybe in a 5 minutes, 10 minutes video, can you conduct the experiments and allow the students to screen that particular experiment? Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. So such innovative ideas are now have to be thought of. And then collaborations. For example, I really appreciate the initiative taken by Rani Parvati Devi College for this international webinar. Can you think of such webinar in absence of COVID-19? I think this is a harsh question, but I would not say that due to COVID-19 such webinar was organized, but we at least realized that we can do these kind of things. We were not having these kind of versions earlier. For us, international seminar means webinar means we'll have to really get out from our country and then visit to that country and then be there and have that particular seminar. But now you can see that Dr. Bill and Kelly, they are there with thousands of students and teachers. And thanks to now technology, such collaborations are now available. We have to explore all such collaborations, not only for the research, not only for the webinar, even for a joint program. And our new education policy is there to do that. And now we have to think about the blended teaching learning. Online, yes, you can't go 100% online. We should have some face-to-face also. So we have to go for what is blended teaching and learning. For the information of all, I would advise you to visit UGC website. Maybe yesterday or day for yesterday, a draft guidelines are prepared by UGC on this blended teaching and learning, and suggestions are invited. So it is about 30-40 pages guidelines. And you can see that what we have been discussing now in the entire webinar, I think a thought is given by UGC. What kind of software is required? What are OER there? What kind of open source softwares are there? What kind of LMS can be thought of? What should be the way of teaching? Everything is there. Now we will have to go through. And if at all we feel that something else is also required, now it is made open throughout the country. That suggestions have been invited. And I would request all of you to visit to UGC website. And if you have some suggestions, you can give the suggestions to UGC also. So this blended learning has to be explored in the coming days, maybe in the next academic session. If you are allowed to go for maybe about 50%, 40% of face-to-face, and there is no option for going for a blended teaching and learning. And now, here are some of the transformation issues. New education policies there. We also have a choice-based credit system. We also have an academic bank of credit in new education policy. For example, a student, if allowed, can take a course from XYZ University from US and can earn a credit, 4 credits, say. And the institution, and of course the university, allow the student to earn the credit for that particular course outside the country and make a part of this particular program. It's possible. And academic bank of credit will be a national level. It is not that student has to earn the credits from his own institution. He can earn the credits from the neighboring institution, neighboring university, outside state university, outside country institution also. And I think that is the transformation that we have to do in the forthcoming era. Availability of online courses at national portal. A good number of courses are available now. And it is said that the 40% credits can be earned through these particular courses. UGC has doubled it. Earlier it was 20%. For example, if you have 20 courses in a typical program, I understand, 20 courses in the typical program, okay? Out of these 20 courses, 8 courses can be borrowed from these MOOCs, and students can be allowed to get those courses through MOOCs, and the credit can be earned, and we can integrate that credit into our own program. Now, saying is easy, doing is difficult. Why? This is the thing which is to be done by universities. All universities. Universities suddenly would say that our software is not ready to do this particular thing, and so on and so forth. Now, it is high time to think of how to adopt these ideas and go ahead. And these kind of things are there. But students are now in the new education policy. They are given wide choice. They can pick teachers. For example, I said, I want to take a course from US University. So I'm picking a teacher, I'm picking a course, which was not allowed earlier. I can pick a course at my suitable time also. So I have that particular freedom. I can frame my entire course also. I can design my entire degree also. For example, if I want to go for a BA degree, then this course I would take from this university, this course from this university, and rest of them from my parent institution. This is how I can design. His friend may go for some other design. So this particular freedom will also go for the students. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to be a model for the higher education in India. Then study through mode of her choice. Yes, should you go for the online? Should you go for the offline? Self-learning? So many choices are there. Give exam on demand. These things are there outside country. I want exam in the month of May on so and so day. A teacher will be requested that please permit to appear for the exam, and teacher will give a link to the students that this is the link that will be open on that day at this particular time, and your exam will start. So on-demand exam will start. So all such things are now to be explored in this particular situation. And I think the situation has given opportunity to go for this kind of changes, this kind of transformation. So think about what good things can be done. Let us critically think about what cannot be. There are some limitations. Yes, agreed. But if you keep on saying that there are limitations, how to come up? Either you have to provide a solution, maybe at least a partial solution, or you have to give up that particular entire thing. So giving up is not at all the good thing. We'll have to come up with a partial solution. What best things can be done should be done first, and then we can solve other problems step by step. So this is what I wanted to say. Conclusion is, let us work together to face the challenges and explore the opportunities in the higher education. Last but not least, we have to follow the guidelines of WHO, ICMR, central and state government, Ministry of Education, the guidelines issued by UGC, our own university, our own institution, and of course, for the students, by their parents as well. So this is from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. That was very in-depth and hands-on explanation of the actual situation of education in India. And I think many people in the YouTube chats have also expressed the same, that you have highlighted a lot of the problems that they are facing. We have a couple of questions now, sir. We'll just quickly go through them.
Yeah, please.
First, from Dr. Poddar. He says, so is there a need to restructure the pedagogy of Indian higher education from time to time based on the needs and situations? And he wants you to comment basically on how that will be possible.
See, restructuring is necessary because I would say, I personally, I'm of opinion that we are not at all settled till this date, I would say, in the entire system. We keep on falling, yes, but we keep on falling once we get into trouble. For example, this blended learning business, I said, you don't have to have a problem to come up with this particular situation. Because in the morning session, I think Kelly also has illustrated so many things. I could see one of the slides over there where I think some museum she was talking about, and then immediately showed some pictures and so on and so forth. This was possible otherwise also. We did not get even a new technology. So we have to think about this restructuring, and we have to seriously think about what kind of restructuring should be there and what is that life of this restructuring. It's not that we keep on changing after every 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, so on and so forth. So the stakeholders, administrators, the experts in the higher education, they have to sit together and then they have to come up with a system which will last at least for about 10 to 20 years. And then accordingly, we have to prepare for executing this particular structure, not only in the universities, but the college which is at the remote place. Our worry is that we have to first think about the college at the remote place. We don't have to think about the college situated in the city, because they are enjoying all facilities. The problem is of those colleges, even electricity itself is the issue. Yes, college is started. We allowed them to start a college, but we did not bother whether these facilities are there or not. So we have to bother about these kind of things, and then we have to restructure. We need to restructure. Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Another question. I think this has been brought up by the speaker. I mean, by the in the previous sections that we couldn't take up. But I was interested by a statement on government funding in this time. So there has been a discussion about providing devices to students. In the US, for instance, students have been provided with Chromebooks or iPads in this time. And I think now also they've got a minimum $15 internet connection that they can use and apply for in certain states. So will it be possible that the same thing can be done in India with the help of the government, given the situation of the economy and everything?
Yeah. Yes, at the national level, some priorities are there. And the first priority is health. And second, of course, should be education. There is no second priority after health. It should be education only. If you recall, I think sometime back, we had an idea about Akash tablet. Such tablets were, I think, were proposed. Yes. And I think some IITs, they had invented those tablets. Yes. And we have to come up with this kind of solutions. And those things should be provided by, of course, government, because there is no other alternative. Who would provide otherwise? Because, as I said, 373 lakhs of students are there. Now, of course, not all of them are required, but at least 50% of them are required. So they should be provided with. Not only that, what about our primary education? What about our secondary education? Those students should also get these kind of devices. And of course, some part of the society definitely will come forward. If you visit to our national portal on CSR, please do visit. A good number of companies, they are spending good amount of their profit on education. And education in the remote places. A part of fund from CSR can also be used to meet this particular demand. And it's possible. If we If we decide, yes, it is possible. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Another question is, how will the credit-based system affect timetables and student numbers? Because if we are allowing students to have access to education more flexibly, how do we plan for number of students in a particular class, and when the teacher would be free to take class, and when the student will be free? Whether there are already a lot of permutations and combinations that go into timetable, and how will the CBCS system make that more complicated, or how can we solve that problem?
I leave it to the teachers. I leave it to the teachers. It is possible. A campus timetable is possible. If we do not do, the students will be at the loss. It is possible. See, whenever new thing comes in our higher education system, there are two things which we really bother. The first thing is that whether it is going to affect the workload of a teacher, whether it will increase or it will decrease. If it is increased, then who will take care of that increased workload? If it is decreased, whether there will be a surplus of a teacher. If we really think about some practical, feasible solution, things can go. All teachers will be protected. Otherwise, there is no, I think, recruitment for many years in many states. And if it is increased, there are people who would like to enter in this particular job. They are waiting for opportunity. So we have to allow them to enter into this particular thing. And when it comes to how to keep a track of the rest of the courses, this new course and all other things, I think many of the institutions in our country, they are doing it. Many of the institutions. But we did not think in that particular direction till this day. Therefore, we think that it is not possible. I would say that it is possible. For example, some of the institutions, what they are doing, they are declaring the Saturday is day for all such activities. So whatever open elective is there, electives from the other departments are there, such courses, such classes can be organized on Saturday, for example. These kind of things are going on. And it's possible. Yeah, it's hectic. I know, I understand. But it's possible. It is not impossible, definitely.
Right. And just a follow-up question to this is that we have multiple bodies regulating institutions. Like you have one paying the fees, the salaries of the staff, and then the institution itself, and then the UGC, which gives through the NAC other guidelines. And sometimes these guidelines don't match, especially, and then some take priority over another. So do you think it would be required that we all centralize these processes, or is there a way to adjust with these different bodies?
I think new education and national education policy, which is coming up, would provide good solution on this particular point, because they are trying to merge some of the regulatory bodies and coming up with the higher education council. I think some of the issues will be resolved in that. Yes, there are problems. I understand. I agree. Many things which perhaps we think we want to implement, we cannot. Many things we don't want to implement, but we are forced to do that thing. There are such many situations there. But as and when there is an opportunity to convey our feelings to the apex body, we should enjoy that. For example, the one I told you about blended learning. Whatever issues that we think that there will be issues, we have to convey to the UGC. This is a high time and right time also.
Yes,
but I agree. Yeah.
Yes. One more question is, do you believe that after a few years, the status quo will be maintained in the sense that we'll go back to education as it previously was, maybe after the vaccination and stuff like that? Or do you believe that education in India is finally changed forever and that there is no going back?
Let's hope for good. Going back would be definitely a pleasant situation. Let's hope for good. But if you don't have an alternative, we have to cope up with the situation. We have to go and we have to face. But let us be ambitious. Let us be optimistic, I mean.
Right. And final question is the students who opt out, some staff members who say that CBCS might not be such a good thing for the students if they don't want to be a part of it. They say that they found a lot of no enthusiasm for these optional and extra courses in CBCS. So what would you say to them to help them motivate their students to solve this problem?
Some people may not like to my reaction, but at that cost, let me express it. Students are not enthusiastic. Whose fault it is?
Yes, sir.
Is the answer. So
Right.
we have to make them. We have to motivate them. I think we are lacking in that particular aspect. You know, in a typical program, in a typical class, student presence is 100%. And for some other class, students want to bunk. Anything new, unless otherwise we convince the student that they will get benefited, they will not come forward. I tell you, this is a hard fact. Even a teaching community, we are not trying to get into what exactly is CBCS for a number of reasons. But by doing so, we are losing opportunity for the students. I would say that much.
Right, sir. And final question, I think, from one of our staff members is how are we going to keep up with the co-curricular and extracurricular and sports activities in this time? Because those are also important. I mean, we have to keep a healthy body as well. So
we have to list down what different activities can be done in the given situation and slowly enlarge that particular canvas. I think it is possible. That's what I'm optimistic, and I pray that the situation will be clear maybe in maybe a few months and they will get back. Yes,
Pierre, I have a question.
yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah. So such
Sir,
events are getting
yes, sir.
on, and naturally.
Just a moment, Such Patil, I think. You were concluding something.
Sir, it has been a great, wonderful moment for all of us here listening to a wonderful talk.
Thank you.
With respect to the challenges and opportunities in the higher education scenario, especially in the COVID-19. Sir, you have touched in your paper that you have elaborately touched upon so many important issues, for example, like enrollment issue. You have looked deep into this enrollment issue, like gross enrollment, the ratio, how it is affecting right now here. And you have also touched upon some equity issues also. Equity issues with respect to even earlier times also have been noticing that there is a male-female equity issue is still problem is persisting here. This is another problem that we have looked into. And third thing is that quality also you have completely thrown complete light onto it. Now how to improve these qualities in this pandemic 19 here. And you are also completely talked about now infrastructure issues here. What are the challenges in the infrastructure, especially in the higher education institutions or even the graduate level or the colleges level here. And there are many issues also you have talked about with respect to the faculty. There's an appointment, recruitment issues or the faculty turnover, etc., etc. Apart from this also, I see some other important aspects also, here. This is, for example, NAC issues like, for example, accreditation issues. Most of the higher education institutions are going for the second cycle, third cycle, fourth cycle also. And actually, how NAC will assess actually during these pandemic periods here, in order to cope up with the quality education or the equity, gross enrollment ratio, or the overall development of these colleges here, it's not just possible to keep up track with all these things here. And even with respect to even the research and innovation things, what we have touched in our paper here, quality publication of research is also completely hampering in this post so-called the COVID-19 pandemic here. Now, when we look into all these things here, just I would like to see that you have stated in presentation that right from MHRD, the Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Human Resources and Development, UGC, New Education Policy, and even the governing bodies top level to the so-called the universities down. Do you think that this new education policy needs to be re-looked into during the time of this pandemic 19? One thing. Second important thing that is there is a need for this just to see this in disaster management, the issues comes up. Do we think that there is an alternative to such policies we need to have such things here, not to attend to all these things here as an this thing, overcome all these critical issues, all these so-called the challenges during the pandemic 19. Thank you, sir.
I think the question was big. Answer is very short. The number one is national education policy. We have been discussing on this particular aspect. Government also invited suggestions from all the stakeholders. This is going on since more than 3 to 4 years. And then last year, finally, we at least brought to the at least notice of all stakeholders. This is what is expected in the national education policy, new national education policy. When this policy came into enacted, I think situation was not what we have been facing since last 1 year. So naturally, this component needs to be added in that particular policy. Overall policy, we don't have to change. Policy will remain intact. But these kind of circumstances, if at all they come, how to address this situation should be a separate, what you said very clearly and exactly, is a disaster management in education. So we have been facing the disaster management. We are trying to manage this disaster. So this provision should be there in the policy, particularly when it is not possible to engage the classes in a face-to-face mode. What should be the way of teaching? What should be the way of evaluation? How the degrees can be formed, and so on and so forth. I think we need to do that particular thing. But I think let us hope that these things would not last for more than maybe 6 months and a year, and we don't have to revive the entire policy due to this particular situation. But we have to augment it, I would say. Instead of changing, we need to augment it, I would say.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you coming on and giving us all of these insights. In spite of, I mean, I'm obviously sure you must be having a really busy schedule, and making it so easy and clear for us to understand the larger picture of the education scenario in India at the moment, and for your inspiration at helping us to be optimistic about the future of education in India. Now that we finished with the third session, so we will have the concluding remarks. The first speaker that we have in the concluding remarks is Mr. Milind Joshi. He's CEO of BellCurve Labs, and he has been instrumental in putting together on one side this webinar. He has collaborated with us very closely and has really made it possible for all of us to enjoy the webinar that we currently are in. So I hand it over to you, sir.
Yep, I think this is a good afternoon for India folks and good evening still for Kelly, Bill. I think first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Shirke sir, Bill and Kelly for providing the details insight around the current challenges and the opportunities for the higher education in COVID-19 and in future. One of the things which I realize, COVID-19 is not going to stop right now. As Dr. Shirke sir said that we have to be optimistic, but I think we have to be realistic as well, that the second wave came and we got a big impact. Then probably we have to really think about what might be the next wave. It might come, may not come, but how we can be more prepared. And that's where how we can prepare ourselves to go into the more blended education system along with the online. And the challenges and the transformation, what you said, Shirke sir, I think what we are also working with the different organizations in India as well as in the US right now. And that is the expertise which we are bringing in partnering with the different organizations here, where we are aggregating all those best practices, frameworks, technology solutions, and which will help everyone. And being a Shivaji University student from '89, I feel that I should give back as well after 27 years being in the US, and that is something which is near and dear to my heart as well from the Indian scenario. So definitely BellCurve Lab is eager to work with all of you we have the right expertise, right technologies, and we can really work very closely with the people. And I have my office as well in Pune and Delhi, and we are working with some of those other institutes as well. But feel free. It seems that there are a lot of questions from this particular forum have not been addressed right now. So if required, we will schedule a follow-up session to address those open questions as well as a comment. And would like to thank the management from the SKE RPD College as well. This is the first time which I have seen a great webinar has been conducted with lot of participation, and not only participation, active participation. So hats up to Shobha Naik madam and all the management team for conducting this. Anyhow, we are partnering together in transforming these things, and I think we'll work together. So anything is required, you have our contact, as well as if you need any additional help. Nihar Kalganti is working very closely with Shobha madam. So he will be the point of contact, and regarding any question with the Kelly as well as Bill, feel free to reach out to him, and we'll schedule the follow-up. Thanks a lot for providing this opportunity, and we'll work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next, in the concluding remarks, we have Professor Vijay Nagannavar. He is the HOD of the English department in the Rani Channamma University, Belgaum. So I'll just hand it over to sir.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. Good evening to my American colleagues. At the outset, let me thank Rani Channamma, RPD College Belgaum, my alumni, from where I have studied, and the principal and the RPD family for giving me this opportunity. I was listening since morning to the topic challenges and opportunities in higher education during and after COVID-19. I don't know what will happen after COVID-19, but right now, as a teacher, we are facing a lot of problems. But coming to this particular seminar, let me wholeheartedly thank and congratulate all the three speakers who have given wonderful insight to online teaching and the challenges and opportunities which are ahead of us. Surprisingly, the first two speakers spoke on the opportunities because they happen to be a bit privileged than this country, and they have spoken very well on the opportunities we have got. But coming to the third speaker, Honorable Vice-chancellor of Shivaji University, I extremely thank him for highlighting the challenges we face every day, every moment on this new COVID-19 situation and the challenges of continuing this education system in this country. Though the challenges are high, it becomes our responsibilities as the teachers that we have to carry on all the difficulties, and we have to face all the difficulties and overcome them, whatever may be the situation. As I am provided with very less time and we are running out of time, I have to go for a class where I am already late for 15 minutes. I abruptly end my remarks. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a member of the management and chairperson of the RPD Managing Committee, Srimati Bimba Nadkarni, ma'am. She will, I request ma'am to please deliver her remarks. Ma'am, you'll have to unmute your mic. Yes.
I have already. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Yeah. Hello. Hello, everybody. On behalf of the SK Society Management and the staff members, I'm really happy to greet you all. And it was really indeed a very good move from our principal, Shobha Naik, to have such an apt subject for today's international webinar. Today's all the three resource persons, Mr. Bill, Kelly, and of course, Dr. Shirke, were really, really very, very adaptive and very detailed things, and were during the COVID, how to face all the problems in education were touched by all of them, and most of the aspects which we were having some trouble in describing and dealing with it, they have tried to clear all our doubts, and we were really honored to have them with us today. I would on behalf of the management, we are really with the higher education, but even with the primary and secondary education, since we have most of the rural children also with us, we would like to be more interactive with Shirke sir hereafter. And as Joshi sir has already offered the help, we are really thankful to them. And though we are fighting against all the odds, I'm very hopeful, and I feel that it's the time of turmoil when we learn some good things. And maybe because we were having all the traditional methods, and as Shirke sir has told, the things were not digitalized by all of us, and this flow came all of a sudden. So maybe we will change ourselves, we will learn to some new more things, and globally, since we are together, we will come out of it, I'm very, very sure. And I congratulate and I thank once again all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Finally, we have to give the concluding remarks, a member of the management and a teacher of a beloved teacher to all of the students of Belgaum, Srimati Lata Kittali, ma'am, who is a member of the SKE Society. Ma'am, over to you.
Good afternoon to everybody, all of us here. Rather a late good evening, I think, to the people from the US. Thank you so much for sticking with us for this long. To me, it has indeed been a very fabulous experience to be able to listen to the various opportunities in these days of constant talk of the challenges that we keep facing in education. I know our teachers have been facing great challenges in making up lessons, teachers, especially in our schools and in primary education, and in getting the children to listen to those online lectures or whatever it may be. It may not be so difficult perhaps in colleges, but certainly I think it will give our students a fantastic opportunity to interact globally and to expand the knowledge in whichever way they would like to. And of course, a very important suggestion on how to create curious students who think beyond their exams to knowledge for its own sake, which is something I think we very much need to remember. Our students are still very much in that exam mode. Keep on thinking about what you'll get for the exam and just study for the exam. I think this will be a good opportunity for us to give them knowledge for its own sake and to help them to enhance their personalities. Thank you very much for a wonderful seminar. Actually, I think it sort of took me back to the old days when the TV became very, very prevalent all over India, went right down to the villages, and then the University Grants Commission started these distance learning courses. So 6 o'clock in the morning, we would have lectures on various different subjects, which did influence or which added to the knowledge of those of us who were interested. Of course, it was just a one-way sort of a learning. I think this is perhaps a step up from that, where we have so much of interactive learning. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all the authorities of the RPD College. Thank you very much to all the resource person. Really been a fantastic seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Finally, to formally thank all the gathered, I request Professor Shri S.S. Shinde to give the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening to our resource persons in the US. It's been a great privilege to propose vote of thanks. It is said, only challenges create opportunities and disruptions are opportunities. After listening to all these resource persons from two sides of the globe, I was just reminded that what this COVID has brought us. If you take the word COVID as an acronym, you can say that it has brought in disruptions in these acronym alphabets that has been gathered to create that word COVID. You can say that C is a disruption in the careers that it has brought in. O stands for the disruption it has brought in the occupations, which has pushed people to change their occupations in this particular hard times. V stands for the change in the human values that it has brought in this COVID period. I is the disruption in the industrial sector it has brought in. And D is the death, which has been a painful thing for the entire global community. So let's understand that this COVID is an acronym which has brought in disruptions in all these areas over here, and let's take up these challenges. So today's topic of discussion has been a burning issue of concern in the field of higher education, that is challenges and opportunities in higher education during and after COVID pandemic. On behalf of South Konkan Education Society's Rani Parvati Devi College of Arts and Commerce, we thank the team of resource persons from the US. Mr. Bill, President, Radiant Alternative Design, Learning and CEO of BellCurve Labs, for his intellectual insight and study of the challenges and opportunities in higher education during this COVID period. We appreciate his acceptance of our invitation and giving us a golden opportunity to listen to his thoughts. Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Kelly Hilton, co-founder of HyperDocs, for her sensitizing talk on the issue as a passionate educationist. Thank you very much, madam. We are also thankful to Mr. Milind Joshi, CEO, BellCurve Lab, USA, for coordinating with the US resource persons team for a global thinking on the issue of challenges and opportunities in higher education during this pandemic. We thank the Honorable Vice-chancellor of Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Dr. D.T. Shirke, sir, for accepting our invitation and gracing this occasion and presenting his views on the challenges and opportunities in higher education and Indian perspective. We are really honored to have the Honorable Vice-chancellor, who has been instrumental in taking Shivaji University, Kolhapur to a AA+ NAC ranking. Sir, we are thankful to you for sparing your valuable time. We thank and express a sincere gratitude to Mr. Nihar Kalgadgi, who helped us in organizing the resource person, Mr. Bill and Ms. Kelly Hilton from the United States. We also express our sincere thanks to Dr. Vijay Nagannavar, Head Department of English, Rani, Channamma University, Belgavi, for being a part of this international webinar and expressing his views on this occasion. We thank Srimati Bimba Nadkarni, Chairperson, RPD College Managing Committee, and Srimati Lata Kittur, Madam, Member SK Society, for their gracious presence and for their constant support and motivation and guidance in the conduct of this webinar and all our academic endeavors. No webinar can be successful without the participation of the teacher delegates, educationists, and students. We express our heartfelt thanks to all of them for their active participation in this webinar. We also thank the management of SK Society for their cooperation and motivation. To my long list of gratitude are the members of the faculty of the college, principal, the convener, organizing secretaries, and our IT team for their untiring hard work, coordination, and support to make this webinar a great success. Thank you, one and all, and have a nice day. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good day to all of you, and to our American friends, good night.